Meno Masisi ka belo khakollo o ka ko e leng gore ke ene matlho le ditsebe tsa rona o na jalo le ene mo magadi wa gata utono e leng gore ene o puthile baithuti gore ba lebelle yone kgaogano e ya madi a setšhaba nae a re gabelela ka go ene ka bola khakollo mme gape ke go khakolla gore mo dikgaolong di le 57 constituencies ba le phatala tsa madi ba tlhomile yalo mafaratlhatlha a tlhaeletsanyo gore motswana mongwe le mongwe go dikgotleng tseo khone gore a mogale molaetsa wa gatona Serame ka tlhamallo a sa utlwe ka gate e rile mme mo nakong e re na le babega dikgang ba Botswana television ba ileng gore ba go dikgaolong tseo le bone ba ke bone matlho le ditsebe tsa gago gore ba tla ba lebelle gore tata go iragalang ba gorose molaetsa le gone go go bone Batswana ba ba leng ka ko mme tota ka belo ga go laise ipankanye kontatile ha re boela ka kona re lebella gore mo go tseo e leng gore ke ditlhabololo tse re di lebileng kana ditiragalo tse le gore di diragetse ha e sale tona Serame a tswa hala bohelo re tla be re na le bangwe baeng ba e leng gore ba tle gore thusa ba itsana tse ba tsaya itshulelo go tla gore lebisa gore kgaogano ya madi e hitileng le go itlhela ga jana tota tse e leng gore di diragetse tse re ka re dirisa pele ke di go ka tshwana mo go tsego
go ngwana ka makisimo re lebile gore kana o itse the transitional plan o ntse madi a kana ka 64 billion e le gore a tshwana se gore a ditiro tsa ditlhabololo mo le gatsela Botswana. I remember ha tona mo na bua gore they wanted to make Botswana a construction site. Right. I don't know can we say Botswana has been turned into a construction site?
I think I could say to a larger extent, really. Right outside the mass media complex, yes. The construction is up again. It almost seems like constantly there's construction going up, but this is the development budget at work. Yes.
So that, Margaret, how do you budget that 2023, 2024? According to me, I want to say outstand or say the digital transformation.
Right.
Nerebona le gore mesele 144 ene go kola maranyane a internet mo dikgoteng. I think something that is good that we say happen under 23 2024.
Go ntsala khaitile ka gore ha re bua ka yone tlhabollo ya tsa maranyane ke tlhabollo e leng gore ga gona ya ka re ka ipila. Digital transformation is a pertinent development going forward. Me ha re bona ya le go setse go tsengwa infrastructure kana di mealo ya e leng gore go kela ya maranyane village connectivity re bone ya ba smart boards ba eteletse pele ke dingwe tsa dikgang tse e leng gore re di lebella ka tlhago le bile mo tsatsing la ka moso tla be letsatsi le go lebellwang safer internet mo letsatsing la ka moso ba tla re lebile gore ga ra go tsena ko digital transformation tona o segetse go le kae.
Yeah, but something se le gore sengwe one ke batla go utlwa gore pheko tata bua re ka sone ke sa mo ba ditemane tota the diamond industry re bone maloba jana e le gore ba the G7 countries ba ntsha statement sa gore all diamonds rough and bold polish di tshwanetse re di go Belgium di go thotwa teng o di be di certify teng ko
right
something that we hear the government of Botswana tlhalosa gore eno ba tla gore se se dire mono gae. I'm waiting to hear what has been the contribution of the night mining sector mo tsena Botswana mo ka gompieno.
Ntsala ka gore gona mmebile mo nakong ye mo ngwageng o re sa o re o digela gompieno wa madi re bone yano minerals policy e tsana mo tirisong e batlang gore gona mme di value chain tsa ditswammung tsa rona di tsene mo diatleng tsa Benghai.
Yes.
Gore ya di ka re bone gape gone mo ngwageng one wa madi o re o digela gompieno tumalano e tona ya ga la hatsela Botswana le DBS e diragetse gone ha gape le gone.
Yes, that's it diragetse mo nakong gompieno mme sa le ba le gore mo nakong re ra bona di 11 sub district di a thuso gona di food district.
Right. Right. Ke dingwe tsa tsene gore re di bone diragala mo ngwageng o re digalang mo nakong ya gompieno wa tsa madi le gore re bona kgaoganyo ya madi e leng gore kana ga tse gore e simolola ga gompieno le ene tona Serame ke thulaganyo hela ya reng ha madi a setšhaba sena go dumalanwa ke parlamente e ba simolola go dirisiwa ka kgwedi ya April e be le gore jaanong morago ga dibekenyana yaanong thulaganyo e simologa sešwa ya go lebella kgaogano ya madi a setšhaba.
Me mona kwa gompieno mara re tsena go re ga bolle go ka bela kgakolo yo gore bana kwa gompieno le ene o sentse ana tota le the first lady le bana bangwe ba le gore tota one ba emetse go sa thulaganyo ya ka bakanya madi setšhaba ka tlhafana.
Ke go leboga jalo wena Botile le one ke supa jalo gore re gone ha ya ka re sa tswa le buile ko officing ya ga mohumagadi wa ga Tautona office of the first lady ha go kokwantsweng bana ba dikolo go tswa jalo mo dikolong tsa di senior secondary jalo le tsa di juniora go tsa mo Gaborone go ne go na le keletso gore ka bogongwe go le ditswe bana le ha tse ka bophara mme e le ka nako tsa e le ntateng ya go le thoko la nako jalo ga bona gore ga ngwa ba dikolo tse di gaufi tse di mo Gaborone mme ba le ha e ntse le supa ga gore ke na jalo ha le ene mohumagadi wa ga Tautona ke re mona kwa gompieno ga isa goroge mme se botlhokwa ke gore bone bana ba balaleditse ba se ba gorogile ha mabaka le gone gore jaaka o itse mohumagadi wa ga Tautona ke motho yo lebaganetse go le bogolo le go nono tshakana empowerment ya bo mme le bana a kokwantse jalo bana ba dikolo ba ile gore ha o ba lebella ha no ka nna le sebaka sa go ba bona ke bana ba sesetsana jalo ba tle go lebella jalo ne kgaoganyo ya madi go ile jalo empowerment so se stona mo empowerment kana isibulla ka yone education le one information ka tsela e ntseng jalo ba go nna le sebaka sa go itseela ka tsebe go tsweng ko speeching sa ga tona wa madi mme Peggy Serame mme ba go nna gape le sebaka sa gore ha re tswa gonega ba tabe ba ntsha megopolo a bone gore gongwe ba bone jang yone kgaoganyo the budget speech ba ntsha megopolo jalo le gore gongwe ba bona e ba coverile jalo e le banana segolo jalo ba ba setsana ka tsela e ntseng jalo gore go ya ko pele ba ka eletsa gore gongwe tona o ka ba a kareditseng mo budget speeching ya lefatshe leno o ka golagela gore empowerment ya bo mme e akaretsa gape le gone go rotloetsa bana ba ba setsana go ka inakanya jalo le ditiro kante di career tse bontsi ba sebaka o no ithela o ka re di ganele thata ko bathong ba borre mme ba leha gore le bone ba tla ba itsele ka tsebe ba lebeletse jalo tona wa madi e le Peggy Serame e le ne tona wa ntha tota e le motho wa mme gore le bone ba bone gore go ka kgonahala ba go iwa gape tshono bana bone ba gore ha ba batla go tswelela ba dirisana le one office yone on a daily basis ba tlogele di contact tsa bone jalo gore ba kgona go ikgokaganya jalo le one office yone ba nono he go apele le ba hetsa dikolo ba kgona go betelwa di career paths tse di maleba ka tsela ntse ya lo re tana gape re boela go lona gongwe re buele bone gore ba bone kgaoganyo ya madi tsamile ka tsela ntse jang.
ke go amogela gape mo Botswana Connect se ntse re hetsa go bona jalo ka bela kgakolo a le ko ofising yone ga the first lady a bua jalo gore o na le bana ba sekolo ba ileng gore ba tlile go appreciate yone presentation yo e tlo dirwa jalo ke the Minister of Finance e bong Peggy Serame ga ba ntse re bona one ra ba nthinkala ka chana as well as on thatile boti ba le gone go dikagong tsa parliament jalo ba tlhalosa ka budget ene heta le maikelo kana rather kere the future or expectations tsa the current budget e leng gore tshwantse gore re tla re utlwe rola jalo ke tona wa tsa madi mme Peggy Serame nna le rona mo Botswana Television News ka 2 o'clock jalo re tla be re ya gone ko ntlong eo ya parliament go utlwa gore tona wa tsa madi o tshwanetseng.
There is one issue I want to believe or everyone is much interested in unemployment. When it comes to unemployment, we need to come up with initiatives that are working towards reducing the rates of youth unemployment in Botswana. We have a lot of graduates who are not working. We have skills, we have knowledge. The government has in the past spent more money educating those people. but when it comes to creating jobs, we see there's a bit of a challenge.
Well, I would hope to hear projects that will lead to exports and that'll come out of rural areas. I think rural development is key in this country. 1966 or until the 1980s, we had about 41% of our own crop production. Now it's come to less than 2%. So I think a lot of this money should be invested back into the people. I think the people have skill. And Botswana is a country that has loads of talent. There's no shortage of it.
I'm expecting a lot of things to happen, especially to impact the poor people. For me, who's coming from Chauziu, the government is doing so well for our people who are not privileged. So we are expecting a lot, actually. Yeah, especially the capital projects. Like in our place in Chauziu, we have been having a lot of problems with water. I'm expecting the government to pump in a lot of money so that we can have our water up and running.
Di project tse di tla le tsone di teka manane wa ile gore le rona bana re kgona go tsena mo go tsone se gore ga te re group kana go ka i group batho ga bana nnete wa go i group le batho le 5 yo mongwe ba babedi ba 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 go tswa maru ba go tshaba ka madi wana go sala le o bereketse le seed
di tsholo tsa me tsa mo tsa kgaganya madi teng ke ga di ka nna botho ka go heta tsa ngwa ga di ba se o mpena.
re boetse jalo gone ko ntlong ya palamente go ileng gore go emetswe tona wa tsa madi mme Peggy Serame e le gone jalo gore o tlile go rola yone pego yeo ya kgaogano ya madi ya ngwaga wa 2024-2025 le gakologa le jalo gore tona Serame ke pego ya go ya bohelo before re ya jalo ko the general elections so ke tsa kre matona le bone gona le se ileng gore nkare ba se expectile go tswa gone go tona jalo wa tsa madi re gone bile re le bile kganya teng ya gore ke kganyone ya gore ke budget ya go ya bohelo tla ke tsamele gone go bo one ra bantheng jalo ka tshane le ene o nthatile boti gore ke tle kutlwa gore seemo sentse jang ka go bone ka go parlamente ka go.
Thank you very much, Joey. Let's come back here to the Parliament buildings here, where we are broadcasting to you live from, to be able to bring to you the budget proposal 2024-2025 live. So I wanted at this point to introduce the guests that we will be looking at this budget together with. We do have here out in our studio out here, Mayor Neo Mahube. Mayor Neo Mahube is Director Investor Facilitation from the Special Economic Zones Authority. Let me welcome you. A very good afternoon to you, Mayor.
Good afternoon, and a good afternoon, Mubaretsi.
We also have Dr. Maleboga Bakwena, who is an economist who will help us look with that economist eye at this budget allocation. Let me welcome you, Mayor. A very good afternoon to you.
Thank you, One.
Okay. At this point, out here by the Parliament building, the Minister of Finance has just arrived. So any moment now, we should be crossing into the inside of the House to get her deliberation direct. But let me start with both of you, where today is really a culmination of a process that takes a whole 11 months or the whole year, really. When we come to receive the budget speech is a culmination of a process. Maybe if you can highlight some of the activities that take place in there.
A budget process and it's done in 4 parts, if I could just say. We have got the May to July is the preparations that the budget where priority areas are being identified by the different ministries, by the different departments, and that consolidate the thematic working groups. Right. The thematic working groups ke tsone tse mo NDP 11 irla haibue go te gona le bo sustainability, gona le bo tsa bo economic growth and all those. After that, the thematic
working groups will just really consider those, and after that the budget the project that happens between August and October, and then if you could say that we mean cabinet is going to consider okay, these are the priority areas, and from these priority areas, what do we further prioritize, or what is our input into that? And from there, that is when budget teng a ka ke re simologile le zero budget e be fia budget e be lo re ga go dumelana gore the budget e le gore ya go nna teng ke, and these are the programs tse leng gore government e leng gore na le tsone, these are the programs that the following year they are going to be undertaken. Ha re hetsa that process which e leng gore e hela ka November go iwa ko pele ya nong ha e leng gore go simolla go baakanyetsa yone ya nong budget gore ye go relola setšhaba se tabe se bolelo ya ka gompieko re emiana gore tota mo ngwageng o hitileng re dirile jana, mo ngwageng o tlang mo go se re se dirileng re baakantse ha re paletswe ke se mme re batla go ratolose itsholelo ya rona jana, itsholelo e dirile jana, and then ha etswa for parliament e ta be approve mme kana ya ka ya toliswa yana mongwe le mongwe kana le phata lengwe le lengwe ministry mongwe le mongwe wa bana le se eleng gore ke sa one ha e sna go nna ya approve yana go ta mo go teng di body committee of supply speech minister a mongwe le mongwe a ba bua gore nna mo le phateng la me budget e ne bua ele ke a go dirisa madi yana a di tlhabologo which is development projects ke ya a eleng gore ke yona eleng gore a tsamaisa di ministry which is recurrent budget ke ye ere gore e re ka April e be ile gore lenaneo la ditlhabologo la simolola kana the plan of that year ya simologa.
Okay, gone me ha re itebela go tle go nne go te government ga ana madi ha go ha dikeletso tsa rona go ngadisa gore go nna re ne re batla teng gone me ha re ha motswana se dile gore ha re bua ka madi a setšhaba a tswa mo go eng a re na le one ka mo gompieno le tlole le ntse jang
madi a setšhaba a tswa mo makgethong a ra duela motswana go gae duela makgetho a gago re tlhoka madi go ne mo ra tsa ko SACU ra tsa mo ditemaneng and ha re leng teng Minister Raki Potsaroe because she's going to be playing a juggling act this year, given that our diamonds are not doing so well, not doing well because of synthetic diamonds in the first place. So we have to compete with those cheaper alternatives that are not doing well because of the geopolitics, the Middle East conflicts yeah. And Russia-Ukraine wars. So motswana go gae gone ke gone go re tsa madi teng ko mme madi Harrison na ra tsaya lo ke rata gore nne o buile ka di priority re ka tswa re le lehatse re na le dilo tse 10 tse leng gore di thoka en re bona ile gore di bothokwa mme a gore dilo tse di bothokwa tse 10 di a go neelwa madi
kana go eo bona go nya gompieno re mo le naneong la di tlhabolo tsa setšhaba la nakwana le nao la motshelakgabo transitional national development plan e leng gore jaaka ha tona tla ba rola kgaogano ya madi e tla be e tsana mo ngwageng wa bobedi le ngwaga wa bohelo gone mme ha re bua ka gore ditiro di ka nna dintsi mme ha re libile le tlhoko la setšhaba le go a kopele go na tse re di tlhophang mme re tla re simologa a re lebelele gone go gore di priority areas gompieno tsa iso la tsa botswana ke di
the priority areas tsa itsholelo di thataro there are 6 and nngwe a tsone ke e re bitsa re digital transformation kana go atolosa ka ha eleng gore re dirisa tiriso ya maranyane ka teng one ele gore digital connections jaaka re bona re nna le bo online applications le tsone dilo tseo le gone gore access and communication accessibility jaaka re bona ile gore go connect to internet ko magaeng ra itse ka di projects tse di dirileng tse ile gore go connectile more than 100 villages go na le mo eleng gore gate business environment gore ha ile gore dikgwebo di direla teng go phepa go le kanang kaeng a di a kgona gore di dire dikgwebo tsa bone ka bofefo ka bofefo so those reforms the other one ke eleng gore government ona e bona gore bogwebi le dikgwebo di ka gola ha o ka dira mo go bidiwang gote di-value chain development mme di-value chain tsena go twa gote mo teng ga di-priorities tse re nang le tsone go na le dilo dingwe tse di ka diriwang ga ke tlhalosetsa Motswana ko gae ke gore ha o le mo mining go tswa mo temaneng ke dife ditiro tse di ka dirwang after that jewelry production transportation go di tsa kwa o di isa kwana kana agriculture gona anong jana ha re agriculture ke dife di-value chain tse e leng gore di teng tse e leng gore di ka nna teng bo processing
sunflower was one of those that was identified last year re ithotele mahura
mehame ke gakologela gona ha re bua ka value chain e leng gore gongwe ne re bone gore ke yone e ka nnang bogao go kitse gore re lebile mahama wa temothuo re lebile wa bojanala gongwe re tsene mo mehameng yone e le gore re lebile gore ha re bua ka value chain ke itse gore ga o isowele o buile di le tharo hela ke ga sebaka sa go di digela yone tsone di-value chain mo mehameng eo hela gore motho a nne le lesedi la gore re bua ka ga go dirwa
tourism for instance bojanala ga o le ko kasane kwa o kgone gore masapewa motho a ye go reka plate ya dijo mo go ene re kgone gore ba palame di-scotch kara tsa rona ba kgone gore ba that would be the tourism the other one would be
okay
so those would be the bojanala is one of them
ke le tsana ganong ga o bona kare ke tla le itatsebe yana ke gore ke ne ke sa tsa go gakolola yana gore ka nako ye mo motho gore mo go one motsamaisa dipuisano tsa palamente wa goroga mo parlamenteng yana gore gone mme thulaganyo e gore e setse e le gaufi gore e ka simolola malokong ngwe lengwe ke go tsene ganong Dr. Bakwena mme tla ke nte me Mahube a digele di-6 priority areas no sa tsa go bua ka digitalization o buile ka gape ka value chain
emma e nngwe ke infrastructure development tota infrastructure kana dikago ditsela ke tsone tse di supang e tsholelo gore re itsholetse go le kanang ka eng ka gore dikago tsone tsena ditsela ke tsone tse di dirang gore go nne motlhofo gore re ise dithoto go tswa kwa go ya kwa le rona re le batho gore re kgone go tsamaya e nngwe ke re bitsa re sustainable livelihoods kana social services sustainable livelihoods re bua ka gore a batho motho ko gae a o kgona go itshetsa a o kgona go bona ditlamelo tsa sepatela a o kgona go bona tsa thutego kana education so re bua ka tsone dilo tse dintsi yalo go nna le eleng gore gompieno yana ra bona gore dipaka di changile a gompieno re ne re itse ke gakologela mo ngwaga o hitileng ne re itse gore ha re July mare ga a hela mme a gompieno a tsamaile a go August climate change e botlhokwa hela thata ke ngwa tse eleng gore government le ya ka Minister of Finance ata yana ke dingwe tse eleng gore wa go di bua gore rona re ipaakantse go le kanang kae go dirisa maranyane a tshwana le letsatsi gore re kgone gore re ntshe motlakase go dirisa le one magala a re nang le one gore re kgone go ntsha leokwane se sengwe se eleng gore re tshwanetse gore re se lebele di-6 ke di bile di le 6 mme ye nngwe eleng gore is the underlying thing ke gore tsone tsotlhe ka bo-6 ya ka gore di diragale yana how do we mobilize the resources madi a eleng gore ra go a dirisa a ntse jang batho ba eleng gore ba go dira dilo tse ba ko kae mme le tse eleng gore what we call inputs towards implementing these things gone re ipaakantse go le kanang kae kana ra go ipaakanya yang mo ngwageng o latelang
Almighty God, from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down the heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the peace and tranquility of the Republic, and the uniting and knitting together of all persons and estates, in the same in true love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Be seated.
Very pity. Order. Good afternoon, members and our invited guests. Let us start our business of today with the tabling of a paper. The quorum is there. Our Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, I beg to table the financial statements, tables and estimates of the Consolidated and Development Funds revenues 2024-2025. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The paper be tabled. Kak.
Presentation of a government bill.
Order. Members, I understand the Minister of Finance has a bill to table to present. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to present the Appropriation 2024-2025 Bill 2024, Bill number 1 of 2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let the bill be read the first time.
Appropriation 2024-2025 Bill 2024, Bill number 1 of 2024. First reading.
Well, for second reading, Minister.
Forthwith, Mr. Speaker.
With. Please continue, Minister.
Notice of motions and orders of the day. Appropriation 2024-2025 Bill 2024, Bill number 1 of 2024, second reading.
Order. Members, the question is that the Appropriation 2024-2025 Bill number 1 of 2024 be read a second time. Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor this afternoon to present to the National Assembly the budget proposals for the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, 2024-2025 is not only the last financial year of the 12th Parliament, but also marks the end of the second Transitional National Development Plan. Mr. Speaker, I therefore wish to recall the second Transitional National Development Plan theme of Towards a High-Income Economy, Transformation Now, and Prosperity Tomorrow, which is at the core of my message for the 2024-2025 financial year. As a commitment to deliver on this theme, the 2024-2025 budget proposals have been significantly increased compared to the current year. Let me emphasize that this stimulus budget will also drive other national priorities as outlined in the Reset and Reclaim agenda. These offer the greatest opportunity to fundamentally reshape the country's development trajectory. I am confident that the proposed budget allocations will once again be an anchor for a people-centered and transformational spending plan with immense potential for stimulating growth and creating job opportunities. Mr. Speaker, in the past years, our voice and footprint have grown in the global community. This is as a result of our vision, consistency, and predictable policy environment and the results thereof. We have taken a deliberate decision to increase our role and mark in the international arena. For this reason, we will host more international events, thereby enhancing the country's global profile and position ourselves as a world-class hosting hub for meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. This builds on the successful hosting of a number of international events, including the US-Africa Business Summit, the 5th Kusi Ideas Festival, Forbes Under 30 Summit Africa, 73rd session of the World Health Organization Regional Committee for Africa, Botswana Tourism Investment Summit 2023, as well as the Eastern and Southern African Anti-Money Laundering Group, ISAMLAC, Council of Ministers meeting. To this end, government will extensively upgrade the Gaborone Road network and those of its peri-urban areas to position the city as an events hub by utilizing 50% of the proceeds of the road levy collections fund. This model will be replicated in other areas across the country in subsequent years. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget for the 2024-2025 financial year is a stimulus budget with an overall increase of 23.5% compared to the current year's approved budget. In this context, a substantial budgetary provision amounting to 20,820 million pula under both the development and recurrent budget is proposed for game-changing programs and projects, as well as high-value strategic investments. Mr. Speaker, as a developing economy, we will continue to stimulate growth, create employment, and focus on sectors with great potential to transform the lives of Botswana. In this regard, I am proposing significant increases of 317% for sport development, 280.9% for research and development, 58.8% for creative arts, while infrastructure development will be increased by 33.5%. Another significant provision has been made for the acquisition of strategic assets. Mr. Speaker, preliminary data released by Statistics Botswana indicates that the informal sector contributed 3.2% to economic growth in 2023. We believe there's great potential for the informal sector to play a more meaningful role in overall economic development and job creation. Therefore, we are creating a revolving fund named Chama Chama Fund with an initial capital injection of 200 million pula, aimed at fundamentally transforming the informal sector and creating employment. In addition, we will establish an intellectual property Muselo scheme and an intellectual property ideas incubation center to support indigenous research and innovation. The scheme, together with the center, will empower Botswana to own and protect their intellectual property assets. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the above key strategic interventions, the 2024-2025 proposed budget recognizes agriculture as one of the critical sectors in our economy. This sector, Mr. Speaker, remains important to our economy because of the business and export potential it promises, as well as its centrality to livelihoods. Therefore, to diversify the economy and create sustainable jobs, we must strive to make agriculture more productive and appealing to the youth. In this connection, the proposed budget for agriculture has also been increased substantially. Mr. Speaker, the 2024-2025 proposed budget will also promote equality for all and grant equal opportunities for women, men, girls, boys, and vulnerable groups to fully participate in the economic and socio-political development of the country. Government has therefore proposed an increase in the budget for gender mainstreaming by 536.5%, Youth Development Fund by 92.3%, and social protection programs by 13.8%. Further, government will introduce political party funding to the tune of 34,600,000 pula, which will further enhance the country's democratic principles. Mr. Speaker, though the budget proposals point to a relatively expansionary fiscal stance, this does not amount to abandoning our time-tested tradition of of responsible planning and budgeting that underscores affordability as well as spending restraint. Therefore, our commitment to fiscal consolidation remains and will continue to be guided by macroeconomic and fiscal policy. I now move on to budget participation and highlights of the past budgets. Mr. Speaker, before I present the highlights, I wish to speak to budget participation. As it is tradition, the process of formulating and preparing the budget is characterized by a series of national consultations which extended beyond the confines of the capital city of Gaborone. One of the highlights of these consultations was the first national budget youth pitso. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to appreciate the useful insights and contributions made during these engagements. These include the urgent need to address infrastructure deficits, invest in research and development, allocate more resources to transform agriculture as well as the informal sector, and support the creative industry. Mr. Speaker, in addition to these consultations and consistent with government's commitment to budget transparency and inclusiveness, this year's budget speech is being broadcast live at various Dikgotla and other public areas across the country. This endeavor leverages the Smart Boss Village Connectivity Program that was launched in October 2023. Mr. Speaker, allow me to provide some of the key highlights of the last 4 years. These provide a snapshot into how we impacted the lives of Botswana through reforms, initiatives, and social protection programs. In addition, a number of pieces of legislation were reviewed and or promulgated not only to address emerging challenges, but also to take advantage of new opportunities. Mr. Speaker, our socio-economic plans in the last 4 years were disrupted by two major global events, being the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. These events have implications on economic development and policy execution even now. Against this background, real GDP growth averaged 2.9%, lower than 7.6% that was projected for the period. Consequently, this lower growth translated into a cumulative deficit of 27 billion and 500 million pula during this review period. Overall, these developments compounded our unemployment problem and slowed our efforts of reducing income inequalities and abject poverty. The unemployment rate rose from 22.2% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2019 to 25.9% by the third quarter of 2023. In response and in the face of these challenges, we commit to formulating optimistic and responsive budgets. Mr. Speaker, despite these challenges and setbacks, there were significant milestones which positively touched the lives of Botswana. These were achieved through increases in total expenditure by 13.3% from 65 billion and 400 million pula in the 2019-2020 financial year to 74 billion and 100 million pula in the 2022-2023 financial year. This deliberate move was made to spur economic growth and sustain livelihoods. Government also reallocated the budget over this period to finance increases in student allowances, provision for re-sponsorship costs, as well as costs arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, including the industry support facility and wage subsidy. Mr. Speaker, for the 2022-2023 financial year, total revenue collected from non-traditional sources under the revised user fees and service charges was 961,140,000 pool. This represents an increase of 48.6% compared to the pre-COVID-19 level of 646,580,000 pool. This demonstrates that the implementation of additional revised fees will boost revenue levels consistent with our revenue maximization drive. Despite these efforts, some ministries were not expedient enough in implementing the revised fees and service charges. I therefore reiterate the call to all government agencies to generate an increasing proportion of revenue from domestic sources. Mr. Speaker, I also take a moment to reflect on the strides we have made in addressing budget deficits over the years, especially given the fiscal consolidation challenges we continue to face. In the past years, we have witnessed relatively high deficits, with the 2019-2020 and 2020-2021 deficits reaching 11 billion and 100 million pula and 16 billion 400 million pula respectively. However, I wish to recognize the significant progress we have made in reducing these deficits to almost balanced budgets in recent years. The 2021-2022 financial year saw a significant reduction in the deficit, with the budget balance standing at a deficit of only 127 million pula, 890,000 pula. Similarly, the 2022-2023 financial year showed a further significant reduction in the deficit. Mr. Speaker, government continues to promote the concept of equal opportunity and equitable distribution of resources, as well as the ease of access to development benefits by all. The Gender Responsive Public Finance Management Assessment was conducted during the 2022-2023 financial year to test the adequacy of government public finance management systems towards gender equality. The results of the assessment show that more needs to be done, mainly the alignment and recognition of gender issues within the public finance management cycle and daily operational decision-making. In addition, the coordination of gender equality policies and the implementation of the budget needs to be strengthened to produce well-structured data for tracking gender mainstreaming across all sectors of the economy. Mr. Speaker, as part of legislative reforms, Parliament passed a number of laws to address emerging challenges and financial hardships faced by Botswana. These are Value-Added Tax Amendment Act, Transfer Duty Amendment Act, Banking Act, Retirement Funds Amendment Act, and Income Tax Amendment Act. In addition, the Botswana Meat Industry Regulatory Authority Act was enacted to liberalize and promote competitiveness of the meat industry, while the Non-Bank Financial Institutions Regulatory Authority Act brought the regulatory and supervisory structure in line with international standards. Mr. Speaker, in line with our principles of prudent financial management, government commissioned in April 2022 a special audit of the tertiary education financing activities under the Ministry of Education and Skills Development, which was completed in May 2023. While the audit took longer than anticipated due to the extensive fieldwork that covered a scope of 10 years, it revealed a number of internal control deficiencies, which include poor record keeping and use of policies and procedures that are yet to be approved, disregard for basic financial management and governance principles, amongst others. In response, government will develop a detailed roadmap to implement firm measures to address the governance and financial management gaps. Meanwhile, it is worth noting that following the transfer of the responsibility of managing the tertiary education financing tuition fees account to the Ministry of Finance, we have noted improvement in the spending pattern. In 2021-2022 financial year, expenditure for this item amounted to 2,229 million pula out of an approved budget of 2,410 million pula, while in 2022-2023 financial year, expenditure was 1,380 million pula out of an approved budget of 1,440 million pula. This shows a substantial decline in spending of 39.7% year on year, where previously there were instances of additional funding requirements. Mr. Speaker, the audit further provided valuable lessons on the need to improve and tighten financial management across government and avert possible corruption. It has also accentuated the need to accelerate similar pieces of work across ministries and all government agencies, including state-owned enterprises. In this regard, government will undertake more targeted audits, as stated in my previous speeches. Consistent with that commitment, A special audit of the Ministry of Health will be commissioned before the end of this financial year with a duration of 12 months. The audit will entail comprehensive investigative and forensic work on a period covering the past 10 years of activity. Other forthcoming special audits will cover the Ministries of Transport and Public Works, Land and Water Affairs, Local Government and Rural Development, as well as entities such as Botswana Defence Force, Water Utilities Corporation, and Botswana Power Corporation, among other key institutions. The Ministry of Finance will also strengthen financial management and internal audit capabilities in ministries, not only to execute the gatekeeper role, but to ensure that accounting officers are supported with the requisite expert advice. Mr. Speaker, local authorities are a critical delivery arm of government and are at the center of local economic development. It is therefore imperative that local authorities are held to the highest standards of accountability. Lately, production of the local authorities' financial statements and subsequent auditing has been improving compared to previous years. To date, 12 out of 16 local authorities have submitted their financials for the year ended 31st March 2023. While the auditing of local authorities' books of accounts is ongoing, there is a backlog of 8 local authorities' accounts which are yet to be audited for financial years 2020-2021 and 2021-2022. This is a major concern since the non-production of accounts on time not only points to corporate governance failure, but also compromises accountability for public resources. This in turn provides a fertile ground for maladministration and corruption. Mr. Speaker, corruption still remains a threat to our economy. According to the International Corruption Transparency Index report of 2023, Botswana has been ranked at a score of 5.9, being 39 out of the 180 countries. This compares to a score of 6.0 in 2022, which ranked Botswana 35 out of 180 countries. For this to change, a collective effort by all Botswana is required to fight all incidences of corruption, including tightening of our prudent procurement processes. Mr. Speaker, the reform of the state-owned enterprises sector to enhance the operational efficiency continues. Due to the complexity of the rationalization process, most ministries, departments, and agencies are lagging behind set targets. To this end, and following the pronouncement made in March 2022, I wish to report progress achieved so far. Several situational analyses have been undertaken in some ministries to inform the process going forward. Worth noting is the draft structure of at least one proposed new entity resulting from a merger between the Botswana Institute for Technology, Research and Innovation, and the Botswana Digital and Innovation Hub. The draft structure will be presented to government for consideration during the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, in an endeavor to improve corporate governance among state-owned enterprises and enhance their performance, a code of corporate governance has been developed. Further, the newly developed state-owned enterprises ownership policy for Botswana will enhance oversight and performance monitoring. In addition, guidelines for appointment of board members, as well as the establishment or dissolution of state-owned enterprises, are expected to be completed before the end of the 2023-2024 financial year. These important guidelines are expected to be implemented during the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, one of the significant highlights of the past 4 years is improvement of access to water, sanitation, electricity, as well as improved road networks. Significant milestones were achieved in connecting areas which had water supply and sanitation deficiencies. Some of these include the Northeastern Totome District Water Supply Scheme, Silibe Pikwe Sirule Water Supply, the construction of the pipeline and pump station connecting the Swapon South Cluster, the North-South Water Carrier 2.2 to supply water to the southern part of the country, the Hamononyana Molepolole Water Pipeline, the the Kasane Water Treatment Plant, the Buteti Southern and Central Cluster Villages Water Supply Scheme, the Maung Water Supply and Sanitation, as well as the Moshopa and Kanye sanitation projects. Mr. Speaker, we also improved access and connectivity of electricity across the country. This was done through the following projects: cross-border electricity supply to connect Hatling and Good Hope border villages to the national grid, the Northwest Transmission Grid Phase 1 and 2, and electricity network extension and rural electrification. To date, electricity access stands at 70.2% against a target of 100% by 2030 for households. Moreover, government has contracted independent power producers to diversify electricity supply. To this end, 2 solar power plants in Bubono, 3 megawatts, and Shakawe, 1 megawatt, have been commissioned and are in operation, while the purchase power agreement for Mamabula, 300 megawatts, was signed in September 2023. Mr. Speaker, we have also seen an expansion in the road network with resultant improvements in traffic flows over the years. Several transport projects have been implemented, including the Gaborone-Boatle Road, 3 interchanges along the Western Bypass, as well as long-term maintenance contracts of Kanye and Rakuna, Tlareselele, Pitsane, Molopo, Mabule roads. Other projects which are still ongoing include the Sesebe Mosojane Masunga Road, together with access roads to Masukwane, Khari, Pole, Mulambakwena, Mapoka, and Lesola Tebe villages, as well as Mandunyane, Shashemoke, Borolong, Chadibe, Matangwane, Makobo, Natale Road. Mr. Speaker, I wish to point to yet another important milestone of the removal of Botswana from the list of countries with strategic anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism and proliferation deficiencies, that is grey listing. To avoid another grey listing, Botswana remains steadfast in curbing financial crime, including money laundering and financing terrorism and proliferation. As a commitment, Mr. Speaker, to this endeavor, government is in the process of establishing a center for combating illicit financial flows at the University of Botswana. The center will assist Botswana's compliance with the anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism and proliferation international standards by providing requisite training to all stakeholders. In this regard, the center will be instrumental for building capacity in preparation for the next mutual evaluation expected in January of 2027. Meanwhile, to ensure compliance with the anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism international standards, Botswana conducted the National Risk Assessment, which was completed in December 2023. The purpose of the assessment was to understand, identify, and mitigate risks associated with money laundering and terrorism financing. The assessment revealed that Botswana needs to strengthen her strategies in order to reduce both the money laundering risks and the terrorist financing risks, which were rated medium high and medium respectively. Following these findings, an action plan is being developed, with implementation expected during the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, another key achievement of this BDP-led government is that on the 30th of June 2023, the government of Botswana and DBS Group agreed to a historic and transformational new diamond deal. This agreement will significantly increase Botswana's presence and leadership position across the diamond value chain, as it includes a gradual but substantial increase of the Botswana's rough diamonds allocation to the Okavango Diamond Company. The increase will see Okavango Diamond Company allocation increase from 25% to 50% over the course of the 10-year agreement. Amongst others, the deal will fast-track Botswana's economic diversification through the creation of multi-billion Pula Diamonds for Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, a comprehensive national retail payment switch, which will serve as a foundational payments infrastructure, is being established to facilitate clearance and settlement of all retail payments. The project is being undertaken in 2 phases, with phase 1 involving documentation of the current payment system structure and the development of a roadmap for future payments, analysis of market requirements, expected to be completed before the end of this financial year. The second phase, which is the procurement of national retail payment switch, will commence in April 2024. Mr. Speaker, the past 4 years have provided a number of lessons. First, the COVID-19 pandemic has underscored the need for us to be prepared for future pandemics, as well as to build resilience to withstand any shocks to our economy. Second, the ability and foresight to strategically direct and redirect our financial resources when required and invest in projects and programs that significantly change the lives of Botswana while sustaining livelihoods. Third, the need to continuously innovate to reap the fruits of technological advancement and new opportunities. In view of these lessons, we will continue to rethink, reset, and reclaim our sustainable development path to address inequality, poverty, and unemployment, especially among marginalized groups. National priorities and focus for financial year 2024-2025 budget. Mr. Speaker, government has set priorities for the 2024-2025 financial year budget derived from the country's Vision 2036, the second Transitional National Development Plan, National Transformation Strategy, as well as the Reset and Reclaim Agenda, which are aligned to sustainable development goals. Our budget priorities are infrastructure development and spatial planning, sustaining livelihoods, agriculture development, supporting the private sector through business environment reforms and value chain development, research and development, innovation and digital transformation, green transition, education and human capital development, as well as tourism development. Infrastructure development and spatial planning. Mr. Speaker, during the 2024-2025 budget implementation, the National Spatial Plan NSP will be central to infrastructure development as an integral part and a foundation for NDP 12. Through the National Spatial Plan, government will ensure that developments are promoted in places where they will deliver beneficial impact for all Botswana. Mr. Speaker, to propel economic growth that facilitates the creation of jobs and attracts investment, government will invest a significant development budget of 17 billion pula for this priority area. The proposed budget will address a wide range of infrastructure gaps which threaten our efforts to enhance the quality of life of our people. Some of the projects earmarked to address these deficits include projects in water, transport, energy, information communications and technology, as well as land servicing. Mr. Speaker, government continues to connect villages to the national grid. Therefore, the village electrification program, which commenced in the 2022-2023 financial year, will continue. Of the 16 new village connections, 10 have been completed, and of the 80 village network extensions, 53 have been completed. The rest of the projects are scheduled to be completed by May 2024. Once completed, this will bring national electrification to 473 villages, or 83.7% of gazetted villages, against the target of 565 villages. The remaining 92 villages will be connected during the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, government will, in the 2024-2025 financial year, improve the standard of living for low-income households by connecting them to electricity. To this end, government has reviewed electricity connection fees for this category and will provide ready-made boxes for free to households which are not wired. Mr. Speaker, Land servicing remains a key priority as an enabler to doing business and by extension facilitating the private sector to set up businesses. Major projects under this program are land servicing to special economic zones, Spedu industrial land, Kasane, Metsimotlabe, Mopane, Palape and Hansi areas, to mention but a few. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to leverage on the public-private partnership model to accelerate the implementation of projects and also address expenditure inefficiencies. I therefore wish to apprise this Honorable House of progress made regarding projects being implemented through this model. 3 projects, namely Tsele Hills Petroleum Storage, Ikayahang XTL Coal to Liquids, and reclamation and treatment of Gaborone wastewater for potable use, are at the procurement stage of engaging private sector developers. It is expected that negotiation and signing of the contracts, as well as mobilization of funding by the private partners, will be undertaken during the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, in addition, drafting of a standalone bill on public-private partnership is at an advanced stage and is expected to be presented to Parliament before the end of 2024. Sustaining livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, government will, through social protection programs, strive to eliminate absolute poverty, enhance social protection, and substantially reduce inequalities, as well as improve the quality of life of all Botswana. These programs include the Reform Tipelegeng, remote area development, old age pensioners, orphans and vulnerable children, World War II veterans, people living with disabilities, and destitute programs. Mr. Speaker, government will also improve access to healthcare services through various projects and programs. In this regard, construction, upgrading, and maintenance of health facilities, as well as improving the rollout and uptake of healthcare programs, will be undertaken as a matter of priority. In this connection, an overall budgetary provision of 6 billion and 90 million pula is proposed, which is an increase of 13.8% over the current year's budget. Mr. Speaker, the 2019 informal sector strategy will be reviewed during the 2024-2025 financial year, with its implementation expected in the same year. The strategy will consider how government can facilitate the provision of decent places of operation for informal businesses, provide capacity building that is essential for skills enhancement, improve market access, and most importantly, find ways to incorporate this sector into the mainstream economy. Agriculture development. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that most of our population is self-employed in agricultural activities, which is the most direct channel for job creation. Therefore, higher agricultural productivity and output will promote food security and self-sufficiency. It is for this reason that the necessary supporting infrastructure, including access roads to production centers, will be prioritized to transform the agriculture sector. Government will, through programs such as Temo le Tlotlo and Tuo le Tlotlo, support micro, small, medium, and large farmers through financial assistance and provision of inputs. Mr. Speaker, Temo le Tlotlo is a mindset change and output-based program. It's intended to promote the spirit of self-reliance amongst Botswana to produce food for their families and the nation. The success of this program will therefore hinge upon collaborative efforts of all key stakeholders, including the beneficiaries themselves. Mr. Speaker, another new flagship program is Tuo le Tlotlo, which is expected to be launched during the 2024-2025 financial year. The program will serve as a catalyst to our animal production sector by increasing the national herd and enhancing the quality of breeds. This initiative will enable Botswana to take advantage of the government's artificial insemination program aimed at improving the current quantity and quality of breeding stocks across the country. Mr. Speaker, regarding land utilization, the Minister of Agriculture is actively addressing unsatisfactory agricultural production by releasing land parcels for private investment and farmers' use. To date, 8 plots are being subdivided for leasing to investors in Molopo farms, while 14 small stock farms will be subdivided into 57 smaller plots for potential leasing to small stock farmers in different parts of the country. In this regard, a development budget of 2,820 million pula has been proposed for agriculture development to support the above referred initiatives. Supporting the private sector through business environment reforms and value chain development. Mr. Speaker, a development budget of 2,110 million pula is proposed to support the private sector through business environment reform and value chain development. This requires a multifaceted approach that addresses regulatory efficiency, financial accessibility, market competition, infrastructure development, and governance standards. Meanwhile, the Botswana Exporter Development Program of 2020 to 2024 will continue to build the capacity of the local private sector to produce goods and services that are competitive in international markets. Further, government will undertake a comprehensive review of business support products and funding models with a view to provide innovative and tailored financial solutions for the private sector to address current implementation challenges, emerging issues, and gaps that affect businesses at different stages of development. Research and development. Mr. Speaker, in a time where knowledge holds immense value, there is need to build capacity for generating novel knowledge, while at the same time closing the gap between basic research findings and transforming the same findings for practical use and economic benefit. To this end, a development budget of 1,020 million pula is being proposed for research and development, compared to 267,800,000 pula in 2023-2024 financial year. This is an increase of 752,200,000 pula, or 280.9%. Mr. Speaker, the Research and Development Program, through the Research Fund and other research windows, will drive research across strategic intervention categories such as mining, minerals and mineral beneficiation, human health and social sciences, food and agriculture, livestock and veterinary research, water, environment, and climate change. Mr. Speaker, as stated in my introduction, the Intellectual Property Motshelo Scheme and an Intellectual Property Ideas Incubation Center will empower Botswana to own and exploit intellectual property assets with commercial potential. This will also ensure the protection of such assets with the support of an oversight body together with the Companies and Intellectual Property Authority. To this end, the Intellectual Property Motshelo Scheme will be an all-encompassing scheme that includes large enterprises, startups, as well as small and medium enterprises to ensure that the benefits of the IP are widespread. Innovation and digital transformation. Mr. Speaker, a development budget of 1,830 million pula is proposed to accelerate the implementation of programs and projects geared towards innovation and digital transformation. This budget will be expended through the Digital Transformation Strategy for Botswana, which is spearheaded by Smart Boards. In addition, implementation of the Village Connectivity Program Phases 2 and 3, which were planned for completion this financial year, will spill over to financial year 2024-2025. Furthermore, the preparation for the implementation of Phase 4 projects targeting more than 301 villages is progressing well, and commencement is planned for April 2024, with completion expected in the same financial year. Mr. Speaker, as stated in the second Transitional National Development Plan, government remains committed to put in services online to facilitate both citizens and businesses. To this end, 170 online services, including but not limited to licenses and permit applications, society services, private security services, marriages services, social services, youth services, and police services have been successfully launched. In addition, a cumulative total of 400 online services are expected to be completed by the end of the 2025-2026 financial year. Green transition. Mr. Speaker, the economy has become highly vulnerable to climate change, which affects mainly the agricultural and tourism sectors. This therefore calls for urgent and targeted responses to climate change. In this connection, a development budget of 1,370 million pula is being proposed to augment the existing donor funds to enhance economic resilience and protect livelihoods, especially the most vulnerable in our society. Mr. Speaker, building on progress made in reviewing existing environmental legislation and integrating climate change requirements into our public finance management system strategies, the 2024-2025 budget will also focus on projects and programs that mitigate climate change shocks, as well as ensure that we sustainably adapt to the emerging adverse situations. Mr. Speaker, Botswana continues to meet her obligations to multilateral environmental agreements, such as the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification, and the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants through the cross-sectoral implementation of national action plans. These international agreements assist Botswana in achieving her conservation objectives and addressing environmentally related effects such as pollution. They also support the implementation of the international environmental conventions on biodiversity, climate change, and desertification. Mr. Speaker, the 28th Conference of Parties, or COP28, emphasized the urgent need for nations to transition away from fossil fuels to renewables and energy efficiency. In this regard, Botswana plans to increase the rate of transition from fossils to renewables from 2% to 30% by 2030. To facilitate these developments, there is need to scale up climate financing, which is a key enabler for green transition. In this connection, Botswana has joined the Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Change. This coalition supports countries to strengthen institutional capacities and enhance international collaboration and collective climate action, including mobilizing climate finance. Education and human capital development. Mr. Speaker, government recognizes the transformational potential of investing in a knowledge-based economy where the creation and application of knowledge becomes central to economic growth. It has been proven elsewhere that a skilled and knowledgeable workforce drives innovation, increases productivity, and fosters competitiveness in the global market. In this connection, a combined budget of 28,600 million pula, comprising a recurrent budget of 26,890 million pula, and a development budget of 1,710 million pula, is proposed for this priority area in the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, the development of an economy-wide integrated digital labor market information system, which is expected to be completed by September 2024, will ensure that the education sector produces the requisite skills for the economy. This system will play a critical role in ensuring development of effective policies and programs that address unemployment, productivity, and skills mismatch. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to direct resources towards transforming and enhancing the delivery of education and training to address the mismatch between available human capital and the requirements of employers and the overall economy. In line with the education and training sector strategic plan, government will implement some of the spillover projects to enhance the alignment between the educational qualifications and the evolving demands of the labor market. To this end, the general education curriculum will be reviewed to support outcome-based education in line with the education and training sector strategic plan. It is also crucial that the education and training sector strategic plan of 2015 to 2020 be reviewed as a matter of urgency to be in sync with the emerging needs of the economy. Tourism development. Mr. Speaker, tourism remains an integral part of Botswana's economic growth and development. Government is therefore committed to ensuring that the aspirations of the tourism policy of 2021 are attained. This will be driven by the implementation of the National Tourism Strategy and the Master Plan, which will span the decade 2023 to 2033. To facilitate the implementation, budgetary provisions have been made to continue upgrading infrastructure in the Kasane-Kazungula tourism areas. Further, government will construct 2 entrance gates at Kawa and Tsetseng as a way of improving infrastructure in protected areas for tourist attraction purposes. Further, new tourism sites will be made available to support tourism land ownership by citizens in the Kasane-Kazungula tourism area. Macroeconomic performance and outlook context for the 2024-2025 budget. Starting with the global economy. Mr. Speaker, the global economic prospects remain uncertain due to the multiple shocks such as the ongoing geopolitical tensions, slow and uneven recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, widening growth divergences across regions, climate change effects, and tight financial market conditions, amongst others. Against this background, the International Monetary Fund, in the January 2024 World Economic Outlook Update, estimates global economic growth to remain well below the historical average in the short to medium term. Global economic growth is therefore estimated to slow down from 3.5% in 2022 to 3.1% in both 2023 and 2024, largely reflecting weaker growth in major economies. Mr. Speaker, the slowdown in global growth is expected to trickle down to the sub-Saharan region, which is estimated to have grown by 3.3% in 2023, from 4% in 2022, before picking up to 3.8% in 2024. In the SADC region, growth is on average estimated to have slowed down to 2.5% in 2023 from 3.4% in 2022. The region is expected to pick up to 3.2% in 2024. Domestic economy. Mr. Speaker, economic performance in Botswana tends to mirror that of the global economy. The domestic economy grew by 5.5% in 2022 and averaged 3% during the first 3 quarters of 2023. This growth largely reflects relatively weak performance of mining activities throughout 2023. The domestic economy is estimated to grow by 3.2% in 2023. Over the short to medium term, we anticipate the domestic economy to rebound to 4.2% and 5.4% in 2024 and 2025 respectively as the world economy recovers. The non-mining sector, on the other hand, is estimated to grow on average by 5.7%, and this has the potential to generate new jobs across both the formal and informal sectors. Mr. Speaker, according to World Bank Group, Botswana needs to boost her productivity levels by an average growth of 2% to attain the desired Vision 2036 growth target of 6%. Mr. Speaker, this growth can be achieved through inclusive drivers of growth, such as effective implementation of investment projects, creation and growth of dynamic local firms, adopting new technologies, and enhancing connectivity to increase markets through trade, transport, and digitalization, as well as developing skills in the labor force. Mr. Speaker, on another note, the level of inflation has moderated and reverted to the Bank of Botswana's objective range of 3 to 6%, following record high peaks in 2022. Annual inflation reached 3.5% in December 2023, compared to 12.4% recorded in December 2022. In line with the low inflationary pressures, Bank of Botswana reduced the monetary policy rate from 2.65% to 2.40% in December 2023. The reduction in the policy rate is prudent from a financial stability perspective, given the sustained risks of high debt servicing costs that prevailed in 2022. Going forward, inflation is expected to remain within the objective range of 3 to 6% over the medium term. Mr. Speaker, the provisional balance of payments data indicates a surplus of 5,100 million pula in the first 9 months of 2023, compared to a surplus of 5,400 million pula during the corresponding period in 2022. This surplus is attributable to increased Southern African Customs Union receipts and mineral exports proceeds. This surplus resulted in an increase in the foreign exchange reserves, which as at October 2023 stood at 64,900 million pula compared to 60,800 million pula registered in 2022 during the same period. This level of foreign exchange reserves was equivalent to 9 months of import cover of non-diamond goods and services, when compared to 8.4 months in the previous year. Risks to macroeconomic outlook. Mr. Speaker, there are several risks which, if not mitigated, can reverse some of the macro-fiscal gains achieved so far. These include risks in the diamond sector stemming from weak economic activity in the major trading economies and the G7 plan to verify the origin of non-Russian goods through diamond certification in Antwerp, Belgium. This may have adverse effects on the country's ability to accumulate foreign exchange reserves and government revenue. Mr. Speaker, the ongoing geopolitical tensions which continue to disrupt global economic prospects have strong negative spillover effects on Botswana's growth prospects and revenue collection efforts. This will compromise the government's ability to provide critical services such as water, sanitation, education, health, and some of the growth-enhancing fiscal infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, there are also expenditure risks emanating from increased demands on government spending, particularly the rising wage bill, subventions to state-owned enterprises, and expenditure items that are largely indexed to inflation. These risks can widen the fiscal deficit and compromise fiscal sustainability. The planned fiscal consolidation and compromise the current fiscal strategy of generating surpluses and rebuilding buffers, as well as reduce Botswana's ability to respond to future shocks in a timely and effective manner. Mr. Speaker, inflation risks stemming from supply chain disruptions could prompt the central bank to hike policy rates and tighten financial market conditions, thereby raising borrowing costs. This could elevate debt risks, making it costly for government to finance future budgets through borrowing. Other negative risks to the macro-fiscal profile may come from inadequate capacity to appraise, prioritize, monitor, and evaluate development projects, as well as the inability of relevant bodies to effectively perform their oversight roles. Furthermore, the proposed expansionary budget may open doors for opportunistic behaviors, while climate-related risks can disrupt human and fiscal capital as well as economic activity during the year. Mr. Speaker, all these risks require effective policy responses and mitigation efforts to enhance competitiveness and diversify the economy to build resilience against external shocks. Accordingly, measures will be implemented during the year to focus on improving domestic revenue maximization, coupled with reduced expenditure leakages, intensified monitoring of both recurrent and development spending, as well as climate change mitigation and adaptation. All of these efforts could lessen the impact of the identified risks on the economy and improve fiscal sustainability and ultimately strengthen government's ability to provide critical services to Botswana. Fiscal strategy, public expenditure reforms. Mr. Speaker, as I indicated in 2023, the Public Investment Management Assessment of 2022 demonstrated that there has been an improvement in the efficiency gap from 37% to 31%. We, however, believe that there is room to improve our governance to increase effectiveness in public investment in order to considerably reduce this gap. Consequently, government has put in place other initiatives to address efficiency and spending. Following the launch of the development manager model, 9 agreements were signed to manage 143 projects at a total estimated budget of 13 billion and 50 million pool. Government will also strengthen the implementation of the 3-stage appraisal process to ensure that projects that are planned for NDP 12 are thoroughly screened before inclusion in both the plan and the budget. Mr. Speaker, the zero-based budgeting and the budget options approach continue to be enhanced in order to improve the costing of budgetary requirements by ministries, departments, and agencies, especially for the operational budget, which takes up over 70% of the national budget. The reforms seek to moderate the gap between the projected revenue envelope and expenditure priorities through cost containment and revenue maximization initiatives. Tax reforms. Mr. Speaker, the review of tax laws is still firmly on course and remains a priority. However, the work has taken more time than was planned due to a few factors ranging from the complexity of the exercise itself, the level of consultations involved, and the ever-changing international tax environment. Mr. Speaker, the objective of the review is to consolidate, simplify, and modernize the existing Income Tax Act to deal with the evolving nature of the business environment in the global economy. Further, it will provide an opportunity to rationalize various concessions under the Value-Added Tax Act and harmonize the administrative provisions under the Income Tax Act, as well as the Value-Added Tax Act, in order to enact a new tax administration law. Sustained revenue maximization. Mr. Speaker, government is stepping up its revenue maximization drive through various policy and administrative measures. This entails diversifying and expanding the revenue base and further improving operational efficiencies. On the tax administration side, reforms are also ongoing, including introduction of digital sales of products and services by remote service suppliers into the tax net. Mr. Speaker, as previously mentioned, to close leakages and maximize revenue, Botswana Unified Revenue Service is implementing electronic invoicing for efficient VAT collection, with the first phase of the 3-year pilot project scheduled for completion in December 2024. Furthermore, Botswana Unified Revenue Service is implementing a solution to digitally mark and track excisable goods, also known as track and trace, and the digital solution will be fully implemented by July 2024. In addition, Botswana Unified Revenue Service continues to optimize efficiency of its e-services, online tax filing systems, online custom declarations, and electronic funds transfer. These platforms simplify tax compliance for individuals and businesses, fostering a business-friendly environment and encouraging investment. Mr. Speaker, to enhance trade facilitation through adoption of a one-stop border model, the Kazungula one-stop border post has been fully operationalized. The model will also cover other critical borders, with Mamuno one-stop border post operations scheduled for May 2024, while the construction of facilities for Pioneer Gate in Lobatse will be completed in June 2024. The Tlokong and Ramatabang borders will follow in the coming years. To further enhance efficiency in international supply chain, the Botswana Unified Revenue Service, in collaboration with other key stakeholders in international trade, has commenced the implementation of a national single window. Mr. Speaker, to complement the one-stop border post and national single window initiatives, the Botswana Unified Revenue Service has entered into a systems connectivity and data exchange program with Zambia and Namibia to foster integrity and greater transparency in cross-border transactions for customs and tax purposes. The Zambia project was completed in May 2023, and implementation is ongoing for the Namibia project and expected to be completed by May 2024. Debt management. Mr. Speaker, though public debt levels remain within the statutory debt ceiling of 40% of GDP, public debt has slightly increased in the recent past. As at the end of December 2023, total external debt to GDP was 9.5%, while domestic debt to GDP was at 10.7%, making a total exposure of 20.2% of GDP. Despite this increase, the medium-term risk of debt distress remains low. A total of 6 budget support loans were contracted externally, as well as the domestic issuance of government securities to finance structural deficits experienced over the years. Further, to improve the domestic capital markets, the government borrowing strategy and issuance calendar for financial year 2023-2024 was unveiled in June of 2023. In addition, government will in 2024-2025 financial year implement a new 3-year medium-term debt management strategy, which will align future borrowing choices with the government's preferred cost and risk levels. Government's net financial asset position. Mr. Speaker, the government investment account was 11 billion and 400 million pula as at November 2023, from 16 billion and 800 million pula registered in November 2022. The decline in the government investment account was mainly due to lower mineral receipts, which have been affected by lower diamond sales during the course of the year. The level of government investment account remains low by historical trends and continues to limit the extent to which government can cushion the economy from future shocks. As such, government will remain committed to its medium-term objective of rebuilding the financial buffers. 2022-2023 financial year budget outturn. Mr. Speaker, the 2022-2023 preliminary budget outturn is a deficit of 1,127,000 pula, which is almost a balanced budget. This compares favorably to the previous financial year's deficit. The deficit is also lower than the 4,880,000,000 pula deficit that was projected in the revised budget estimates. The underspending of the development budget by 2,150,000,000 pula also contributed to this outcome, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, total revenues and grants amounted to 74,100,000,000 pula, compared to 71,530,000,000 pula in the revised budget. Total expenditure stood at 74,100,000,000 pula, compared to 27,410,000,000 pula in the revised budget. Recurrent spending amounted to 59,710,000,000 pula against the 60,120,000,000 pula that was budgeted. On the other hand, development spending amounted to 14,280,000,000 pula compared to 16,430,000,000 pula that was initially allocated. 2023-2024 financial year revised budget estimates. Mr. Speaker, the revised budget estimates for the financial year 2023-2024 point to a slightly lower deficit of 7,130,000,000 pula compared to a deficit of 7,590,000,000 pula in the original budget. Total revenues and grants are estimated to increase by 2,160,000,000 pula to 81,670,000,000 pula. This increase is attributed to better than expected mineral receipts due to exchange rate gains from the depreciation of the pula against US dollar over this period. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure and net lending, on the other hand, is estimated to increase by 1,420 million pula to 88,790 million pula. This increase is due to the growth in the recurrent expenditure, particularly personal emoluments, grants and subventions, and other charges, which increased by 664 million pula, 313 million, and 439 million pula, respectively. (2024-2025) financial budget proposals. Mr. Speaker, I will now present the last budget for the 12th Parliament. That is the 2024-2025 financial year budget proposals, starting with total revenues and grants. Mr. Speaker, total revenues and grants for the 2024-2025 financial year are projected at 93,580 million pula. The largest contributor is customs and excise receipts, which is estimated at 26,460 million pula, or 28.5% of total revenues. The second largest contributor is mineral revenue, which is estimated at 25,050 million pula, or 26.8% of total revenues. Non-mineral income tax and VAT are estimated at 22 billion pula, or 23.5%, and 15,240 million pula, or 16.3% of total revenues and grants, respectively. This performance is expected to be driven by increased revenue collection efforts by the BURS. The balance of 4,590 million pula is expected to be accounted for by other revenues and grants. Total expenditure and net lending. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure and net lending for the financial year 2024-2025 is projected at 102,280 million. This compares with the revised 2023-2024 financial year amount of 88,790 million pula. This includes 72,610 million pula proposed for the recurrent expenditure and 29,777 million pula for the development budget. This compared to the original approved recurrent budget of 67,930 million pula and the development budget of 21,010 million pula in the 2023-2024 financial year, respectively, as well as net lending of minus 93,660,000 pula. The increase in the proposed budget reflects to a large extent increased fiscal spending to support public investment as part of the second transitional national development plan. Statutory expenditure. Mr. Speaker, statutory expenditure for the 2024-2025 financial year is estimated at 24,390 million pula, which is an increase of 3,420 million pula, or 16.3% compared to the 2023-2024 revised budget. The proposed statutory expenditure estimates will cater for public debt servicing obligations, terminal benefits for members of parliament, government's pension contribution for civil servants to the Botswana Public Officers Pension Fund, and other statutory commitments. The growth recorded in the public debt estimates is attributed to the maturing of bond BOTG B0325 amounting to 2,220 million pula in March 2025, as well as the increase in interest rates. The growth also includes an amount of 2,640 million pula for the acquisition of land measuring about 45,000 hectares from Tati Limited Company, acquisition of a 24% stake in HB Antwerp, and to support a partnership between Botswana government and CTL America. The acquisition demonstrates government's commitment to investing in strategic assets for furtherance of socio-economic development. Ministerial recurrent budget. Mr. Speaker, the total proposed budget for ministerial recurrent expenditure is estimated at 63,740 million pula, which is an overall growth of 5.7% over the current year's approved budget. The major drivers of this growth include the obligation to pay 5% adjustment of salaries and allowances for public servants, adjustment of social welfare benefits, terminal benefits for councillors, provision for vehicle replacement, and re-sponsorship of government-funded tertiary education students. The budget will also cover provisions for increases in the number of council wards, councillors, and members of parliament, as well as maintenance of facilities, amongst others. Mr. Speaker, the largest share, amounting to 15,540 million pula, which is 24.4% of the proposed recurrent budget, is allocated to the Ministry of Education and Skills Development. This amount is an increase of 500 million pula over the approved budget for the current financial year, amounting to 15,040 million pula. The proposed budget will cover teachers' salaries and allowances, operational costs for state-owned enterprises under the ministry, allowances for tertiary education students, food, as well as books for learners in public schools. Mr. Speaker, further to this, the increase is also proposed to cover operational costs for the Institute of Health Sciences, brigades, invigilation and coursework costs under the Botswana Examinations Council, medical examination for students, maintenance of firefighting equipment at schools, and provision for temporary teachers. In addition, the proposed budget will be utilized to ensure the delivery of quality curriculum development needed to enhance the knowledge and capability skills of our learners. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Defense and Security is allocated the second largest share of the proposed ministerial recurrent budget, amounting to 10,650 million pula, an increase of 8.4% over the current year's approved budget of 9,840 million pula. The budget will assist the ministry to provide safety and protection through implementation of relevant national policies and programs required to achieve peace and tranquility in the country. The allocation will mainly cover operational costs for security agencies such as the Botswana Defence Force, Botswana Police Service, as well as Botswana Prison Service. The budget will also cater for costs of the newly established Drug Enforcement Agency to combat the alarming rate of drug use, the creation of 1,000 positions and associated costs at Botswana Police to enhance law enforcement, procurement of branded uniform for Botswana prisons, uniform and protective clothing for prisoners, as well as operations by the Botswana contingent under the Southern African Development Community Mission in Mozambique. Mr. Speaker, the third largest share of the proposed ministerial recurrent budget, amounting to 9,480 million pula, goes to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. The budget will support, amongst others, initiatives aimed at improving local governance and strengthening social and community-driven economic development at the local authority level. This budget represents an increase of 1,226 million pula, or 15.3%, compared to the approved budget of the 2023-2024 financial year. 924 million pula of this budget is allocated for councillors' terminal benefits, the operational expenses of upgrading sub-districts into fully fledged districts, and the projected growth in the number of council members and council wards, as well as increase of the allowance for village development committees. Mr. Speaker, the revenue support grants to districts and urban councils constitute the largest portion of the ministry's projected recurrent budget, amounting to 5,190 million pula, or 55.5% of the total budget. Additionally, provision for food supplies for primary schools and health facilities have been included in the proposed budget. This will be procured from local farmers to support the reset agenda priority of value chain development. The proposed budget allocation also includes increases of 100 pula per month per beneficiary for each of the social protection allowances, that is, old age pension allowance, destitute cash allowance, World War II veteran allowance, disability cash allowance, and 130 pula per member per sitting for village development committee allowances. In addition, funds have been allocated for maintenance of customary costs, the replacement of vehicles, and for the procurement of equipment and furniture for tribal administration departments. Mr. Speaker, the fourth largest share is allocated to the Ministry of Health, with a proposed ministerial recurrent budget amounting to 9,460 million pula, which is a decline of 850 million pula, or 9% compared to the 2023-2024 approved budget. The decline is mainly due to a reduction in the COVID-19 budget allocation, as the scourge has now subsided, as well as the once-off payment for salaries in respect of the multiple graded C-band positions. The proposed budget will enable the ministry to provide sustainable, preventative, curative, and rehabilitative health services to the nation. The proposed provision will also target interventions post-COVID-19 while reducing the possibility of new infections or resurgence. The funds will also be used to pay for the acquisition of vaccines, medicines, including ARV drugs, laboratory supplies and equipment, medical and surgical equipment, contribution to the Public Officers Medical Aid Scheme, fees for medical specialists, and the restructuring of district health management teams, DHMTs, as well as to continue with the operationalization of, say, Kitumile Masira Teaching Hospital to full capacity. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget allocation for the Ministry of Finance amounts to 2,940 million pula. This amount has increased by 14.8%, or 380 million pula. The major budget items are the tertiary education tuition fees and transfers to parastatals under the ministry. The provision also covers the continuation of Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group, or ISAMLAC activities, engagement and promotional activities by the ministry to enhance Botswana's presence and visibility in the African continent and worldwide. The proposed budget allocation will cover the establishment of a center at the University of Botswana for combating illicit financial flows to maintain the country's good standing. The provision for operationalizing the Public Procurement Tribunal to full capacity is also included in this budget. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget allocation will also cater for the weather-based crop insurance premiums to support the Temoletoto program. The insurance, which is a transition from the Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme, will cover the proposed lending component of the program. The lending component is being administered by the National Development Bank, NDB, which started in the 2023-2024 plowing season, while the insurance component will be transferred to the private sector during the 2024-2025 financial year. Mr. Speaker, the proposed allocation for the Minister of State President is 2,740 million pula. This represents an increase of 425,922,000 pula, or 18.6% from the current year's approved budget of 2,310 million pula. The proposed budget will support the ministry's mandate of organizing and coordinating government business, as well as safeguarding and promoting good governance. The provision will cater for copyright and author fees, an expected rise in the number of freelancers and broadcasting services following the introduction of more television channels, conducting special external investigations by the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, as well as carrying out National AIDS and Health Promotion Agency operations. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget allocation for the Ministry of Transport and Public Works for the 2024-2025 financial year amounts to 2,090 million pula. This is an increase of 80 million pula, or 4% of the ministry's current approved budget of 2,010 million pula. The increase is proposed to cater for the replacement of government fleet at an amount of 430,010,000 pula, as well as provide for operations of parastatals under this ministry, including wages and benefits for the recently formed Catalyst project team, amongst others. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget allocation for the Ministry of Agriculture amounts to 1,560 million pula, which is an increase of 110 million pula, or 7.6% over the current year's budget. This proposed budget is meant to support the national imperative of increased domestic food production to reach a higher level of agricultural product self-sufficiency as part of value chain development. The budget will also go towards supporting innovative initiatives like Temoletloto and Tuoletloto, which are aimed at supporting the country's food security and agricultural export efforts. It will also cover subventions to the National Agricultural Research and Development Institute, NADI, contain the spread of foot and mouth disease, also for the maintenance of existing facilities, including artificial insemination camps, plant and equipment, as well as computer systems such as the Botswana Animal Information and Traceability System. Further, funds will be used to operationalize the recently formed Department of Aquaculture and Apiculture to promote fish and bee production. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget for the Ministry of Youth, Gender and Sport and Culture amounts to 1,060 million pula, or an increase of 19.4% over the current year's budget. The budget will cover priority budget lines which include arts, sport, youth, gender and cultural activities. Further, the provision will cater for grants to oversight bodies such as Botswana National Youth Council and National Women's Exposition. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget allocation for the Ministry of Lands and Water Affairs amounts to 1,020 million pula, which will pay for expenses related to land and water administration, as well as systems maintenance. The proposed budget will also cover subventions to land boards, which accounts for 54% of the proposed ministerial budget. Mr. Speaker, the remainder of the proposed ministerial recurrent budget allocation of 6,780 million pula, or 10.6%, will be shared among the remaining ministries and extra ministerial departments. Development budget. Mr. Speaker, the proposed development budget for 2024-2025 financial year is a sum of 29,770 million pula, an increase of 8,760 million pula, or 41.7% over the 2023-2024 approved budget. Through this budget, government aims to propel the implementation of projects to unlock opportunities for sustainable jobs, improving the quality of life, reducing poverty, eliminating gross inequalities, and ultimately achieve a high income status. To this end, a substantial amount of the budget has been allocated to infrastructure development, given its role in promoting economic growth and facilitating participation of the private sector. Mr. Speaker, the largest share of the proposed development budget goes to the Ministry of Lands and Water Affairs, amounting to 8 billion and 10 million pula, or 26.9%. The allocated funds will cover various projects, including the completion of the North-South Carrier 2.2, Maung Water and Sanitation, Good Hope Water Supply Scheme Phase 2.2, as well as final payments for Moshupa Sanitation, Kanye Sanitation, and Boteti South Central Water Supply Scheme. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget will also cover the implementation of ongoing Molepolela Sanitation Wastewater Treatment Plant, Kgalagadi North Water Supply, Sewer Water Supply, and Kanye Network Rehabilitation projects. Further, a significant budget has been provided to cater for water supply network rehabilitation and upgrade in 9 localities, including Molepolole, Serowe, Bobonon, Tsabong, Francistown, and Gaborone. The following land servicing projects have also been catered for: Metsi Motlabe, Khanti Expansion, Mount CBD, Botshabelo Infill, Kasane Plateau and Nyungwe, Sesarezakama International Airport, Special Economic Zone, Mopane Block 1, Chobeka Chikau, and Letlhakane Ditsibogo. Other land management projects include the preparation of spatial plans, surveying of plots and land acquisition, and preparation for land allocation. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Transport and Public Works has been allocated the second largest share of the proposed development budget, amounting to 3 billion 950 million, or 13.3%. The budget will cover ongoing road infrastructure projects, such as traffic signal modernization and centralized traffic control for Greater Gaborone, Botswana Integrated Transport Project, Makala Mabedi mo Topi, Mandunyane Shashemo Keborolon Chadibe, Matangwane, and Gaborone Boatle Jualing roads. The proposed allocation will also cover upcoming road projects, which will be executed using the development manager model. These road projects include the Mogodisana Habane Mangodi Junction Jualing, Maun Sihitwa, Sihitwa Mohembo, Mohembo Gudigwa, Shorobeka Chikau, Francistown Nata, Nata Maung, Nata Kasane, Matete Bray Veda, Palape Martins Drift, Mudipane Mabalane, Mabalane Mapashalala, Khansi Junction 44 East-West Hana High, New Kade, and Molepole Bypass. Additionally, the budget will cover other roads such as Midialin Zoletau and access road to Gaborone Central Business District, which are still at design stage, as well as 3 grade separated interchanges at Molapo Crossing Block 8, Traffic Circle, and Airport Junction, which is at pre-contract stage. Further, a considerable budget provision has been allocated for construction of other access roads connecting villages and production areas. Mr. Speaker, in addition, the proposed budget will cater for air, rail, and bridge infrastructure projects. The air projects to be catered for include maintenance of airports, improvement of surveillance of Botswana airspace, upgrading of air navigation services infrastructure, installation and improvement of airports, security systems, mandatory engines replacement, procurement of airport safety equipment, as well as improvement of existing airport security and safety. The railway projects catered for in the proposed budget include optimal utilization of the dry port at Welvis Bay, development of inland dry ports, Botswana Railway Workshop equipment, Mama Bulala Palala Railway Line, Mosetse Kazungula Railway Line, and the construction of Martins Drift Bridge. The 2024-2025 development budget also includes provision for ICT projects such as local access network upgrade and the purchase of ICT equipment. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget will also make the provision for social housing projects, namely SHA, Home Improvement and Turnkey Scheme, Integrated Poverty Alleviation and Housing Scheme revamping, Public Officers Housing Scheme and District Housing Program. Mr. Speaker, the third largest share of the proposed development budget at 2,890 million pula, or 9.7%, is for the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. The proposed budget will be used to boost local government infrastructure, improve primary education services, and implement social welfare programs, which include Ipelecheng, the Destitute Program, and Remote Area Development Program. All projects under the social welfare programs have been maintained at the current level, except for Community Constituency Program and Ipelecheng, which have been increased from 570 million pula and 628,820,000 pula to 610 million pula and 848,700,000 pula, respectively, on account of the expected increase in constituencies. Mr. Speaker, the fourth largest share of the proposed development budget of 2,780 million pula, or 9.3%, is allocated to the Ministry of Defense and Security. The funds are mainly for provision of infrastructure, defense and communication equipment to strengthen the Botswana Defense Force capabilities for protection of the territorial integrity of the country. The budget will also be used to strengthen Botswana Police Service capabilities to fight crime and for the Botswana Prison Service to provide safe custodial care and correction to offenders through effective rehabilitation and reintegration programs. Mr. Speaker, the fifth largest share of the proposed development budget goes to the Ministry of Minerals and Energy at 2,390 million pula, or 8%. A significant portion of the funds, amounting to 1.5 billion, is proposed for the Botswana Power Corporation, BPC, for purposes of power importation into the country, as well as to facilitate the annual loan repayment. Other projects that are funded include Phase 2 of the Northwest Electricity Grid, rural electrification and network extension, as well as network reinforcement projects. Furthermore, funds are proposed for the construction of the Hansi Oil Depot, as well as rehabilitation of old mines. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget allocation for the Ministry of Agriculture amounts to 2,020 million pula, or 6.8% of the development budget. The focus under this ministry is the promotion of national self-sufficiency in food production, especially given the increase in climatic shocks resulting from climate change, investing in agricultural value chains, as well as commercialization of both arable and livestock farming. As such, the bulk of the 2024-2025 proposed budget will cater for the Temoletoto program. The Temoletoto program budget will cover the provision of grants to farmers for procurement of inputs and production services for the household food security component. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, the commercial component of the budget will cater for cluster development, including electrification of the clusters, automated meteorological weather stations, construction of re-engineered roads to clusters, drilling and equipping of cluster boreholes, and construction of silos at Musesedi, Good Hope, Matopi cluster, Masunga cluster, Lishibitze, Naledi cluster joining, Maki Reikops, Koro, Good Hope, Puduhudu, and Malwelo. Mr. Speaker, the proposed budget for the Ministry of Communications, Knowledge and Technology amounts to 1,730 million pula, or 5.8%. The proposed budget will cover ICT projects such as online services implementation, government data network expansion, national ICT backbone, international connectivity, as well as local access network, aggregation of citizen identifiers, and service management, robotics, and analytics. Further, the proposed budget will cater for cybersecurity, orphan radioactive storage facility, and border detection systems projects, research fund, as well as other ongoing research projects, including on climate change, natural resources and material studies, ICT and electronics research, energy studies, as well as building material science studies. The budget will also cater for establishment of the Intellectual Property Motshelo Scheme and the IP Ideas Incubation Center. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry for State President proposed budget is 1,520,000,000 pula, or 5.1% of the development budget. The proposed budget will fund the following programs and projects: village connectivity to facilitate digital transformation across the economy, facilitation of creative industry, National AIDS and Health Promotion Agency programs, social protection and disaster preparedness program, as well as strengthening of the Directorate of Intelligence and Security. Additionally, as a measure to strengthen our democratic system, the proposed budget will cover political party funding. Mr. Speaker, the remaining ministries and departments share the balance of the proposed budget of 4,480,000,000 pula, or 15%. Some of the major projects covered include construction and expansion of schools facilities across secondary and tertiary levels, as well as digitization activities for senior secondary schools, provision of education equipment to colleges of education, brigades and vocational training centers, recapitalization of the National Development Bank and Botswana Development Corporation, construction of the Citizen Entrepreneurial Development Agency Horticulture Market, construction of the Leather Park, establishment of livestock marketing concentration centers in Zabong and Serowe, national agro-processing centers in Gaborone and Francistown, market shelters for the informal sector along the A1 highway, and the wealth creation program, amongst others. Overall balance and financing. Mr. Speaker, a budget deficit of 8,690,000,000 pula, or 2.8% of GDP, is projected for 2024-2025 financial year. Due to the current fiscal policy priority to allow accumulation of government cash balances, drawing on the government investment account will be moderated as part of financing the budget. Consequently, government will have to mobilize additional resources, including using part of the fiscal savings, special funds proceeds, and domestic borrowing through the issuance of new instruments, such as inflation-linked bonds and green bonds, amongst others. Conclusion. Mr. Speaker, the proposed 2024-2025 budget sets a strategic tone and foundation to provide a stable macroeconomic environment necessary to deliver on the Vision 2036 goals, the second Transitional National Development Plan, as well as the Reset and Reclaim agenda. As the BDP-led government, we remain resolute in ensuring this is realized in our lifetime. And Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate that despite the expansionary budget with an overall balance in deficit, government will strengthen fiscal sustainability measures by maximizing domestic revenue collection, as well as curb expenditure growth and leakages, while addressing overall spending inefficiencies. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the government and the people of Botswana, I wish to take a moment to recognize our development partners for the continued support to our development agenda. It is not an understatement to say that their assistance over the years has helped deliver on the aspirations of Botswana. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to thank Botswana for their patience and understanding during the difficult process of restoring our economy to its sustainable path. Let me encourage every one of us to join hands in doing things differently and better going forward. I also wish to urge those in the public sector to improve their performance by being competent and remain committed to the implementation of the reforms that are being proposed in this budget. Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize the contribution by the private sector as a key driver of economic growth and job creation. In addition, the role of the informal sector cannot be overemphasized. It is therefore fitting that a new employment creating and transformational fund has been proposed for the 2024-2025 financial year to support this critical sector. I take this moment, Mr. Speaker, to urge, challenge, and encouraging all aspiring entrepreneurs, innovators, and hustlers to take advantage of the new fund. Reka chema chema bethu. And while we create and innovate, we must protect our intellectual property. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I wish to repeat the unwavering commitment of this government to deliver on the promises we made to Botswana. Through the leadership of the BDP government, Botswana has been able to ride the tide of COVID-19 pandemic, increasing budgetary pressures, significant inflationary pressures arising from geopolitical tensions and the resultant supply chain disruptions, and reasonably mitigated the effects of drought. Mr. Speaker, I have, for the 2024-2025 financial year, proposed a stimulus budget that will create opportunities for all to play a meaningful role and contribute towards transforming our economy to be more inclusive, innovative, and knowledge-based. I therefore invite all Botswana to take advantage of opportunities that will be created by this expansionary budget. This concludes my presentation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I now move that the Appropriation 2024-2025 Bill 2024, Bill number 1 of 2024, be read a second time. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, members. The question is that the appropriation bill 2024-2025 bill.
All right, that marks the conclusion of the presentation of the 2024-2025 budget, national budget proposal by Minister Peggy Serame. Well, we're out here at the Parliament building. I'm talking about the BTV News channel in the face of myself, Ramanteka Lakachani and Don Tatile Bodi. It sounds like a very robust budget.
Yes,
I must say.
It's a robust budget. Era bonang elor ana abi hoke tona Peggy Serame solo jang ne rebeza the recurrent budget ile go gompieno na eta ile 63 over 63 billion pula ile gore ke madi a ditiro tsa tsetse a ta bana gore a ta ba dirisa ke maphata a tsamisa maphata a tiro tsa tsetse le tsatsi me gape a tlhalosa gore le phata la thuto lona la go bona madi a kana ka 15 billion which is contribute to the largest share a madi a recurrent budget.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. O tla le dipalo tsa teng ke ne ke batla gore sengwe sa dilo tse di ha ke bitsa ke budget ena magadi ke gore mangwa manane wa a le gore ra utlwa ile la ntla gompeng re utlwa ka nano la chema yes the informal sector wa o iteka lo motho sa na hera o tsentse ro chema 200 million ke madi a bona ntota re lebeletse gape le bo IP motshelo policy re lebella gape le dilo tse dintšha tse le gore di tla goroga ile kana go remelela go itebaganya ka tlhamallo le megamae ya metshameko ya dipatlisiso research ya bodiragatsi create the sector ke sa le political party funding.
I think well to those people who are there within the chambers or outside who have got interest in politics so go janga ngwa go ke ngwa ga dithopo how we got 34 million political funding, obviously something that we've been waiting for. But it's a beginning, it's a start of something. I think they're happy with this move. They've been calling for this move for all these years. At least for no se puso ya batho ka batho a di party tsa politiki di thuso ka madi gore gona go ipapatsa center on.
It's an interesting look at how the national priorities
Yes.
have been reviewed. They have morphed from the 6
Yes.
at budget 2023-2024 to the 10 now at budget 2024-2025 at the conclusion of the transitional national development plan. You want to speak to that?
Yes, I have been moved because how can you tell more na go hitile ndine 6 there were 6 yes but di bua ka infrastructure development bo human capital value chain development di bua ele gore tsone ka borata ja tsone ne di tlhalosa gore di leka go tsamaisa lena la transitional national development plan ka re itse mara ka gompene ga gona NDP 12 isampe eta isima ka 2025-2026 so gompene di oketsegile. I hope, I believe the new ones they'll be able to put oil in the wheels to make sure that the wheels of government gets running. Gore batho ba gone go itemogela gore a me yone budget ana kwa gompieno ana e batla ka dutse di molemo.
Se tona wa tsa madi a se re gakollang le gompieno ke gore ngwaga ra bona kgaoganyo ya madi a setšhaba gompieno re a re lebile gore ke dingwaga di le ka di le 12 hela gore be re goroga go tebelo pele ya setšhaba ya 2036 mme tsotlhe tsene gore di a dirwa ngwaga le ngwaga tshwanetse re be le gore di re gogela komi re hela ga simona tona wa tsa madi a ba tlhalosa gore tota hela mono wa kgaogano ya madi ke towards a high income economy. Transformation now, prosperity tomorrow.
Una tlhalosantsa o tla itse gore kana mona gompieno na tebele pela sa vision 2036 ga e nosi go na le o itse go na le the reset and reclaim agenda and 18 ka tautona go tswa go na le the sustainable development goals le gore ke tsa le gotla di tšhaba se le gore council o ire tsone ditogama tsa ditlhabolo o ntse o baakanya madi gore wa aba madi ka tsentsang o tsentse o lebelone matshegona e le gore ke ona a tsamaisang puso mona kwa gompieno gore se o se dirang se tsamena se diregalang ko mahatsheng a selo o se ka iphitlhela o dira sengwe se le gore go mahatse a mangwe a konte bone ba setse ba hatse se ko pele jaaka ana a bua gore o tshwanetse gore mona kwa gompieno gore le hatse la botswana le tsoga le leng teng le ya to a high income status country go tla re dutsone duotseng ba di ithagana le puso di diragadilwe.
Okay, ha re ntse re bua le baitsanape ka go harologana go ko e leng gore go tla tshwana ke gore re batla bao ba e leng gore ba na le baitsanape ka teng ja teng ba re rarabolele to unpack tse e leng gore ke tse di neetsweng madi ke gore puso ya lehatshe la Botswana kana maitlamo a lehatshe la Botswana ke gore ga gona po sallang ko morago.
Yes indeed ga gona po sallang
ko morago. Ha re lebella dikarolwana tsa setšhaba di tshwana le batho ba bomme batho ba e leng gore ba ne ba saletse ko morago gongwe disadvantaged communities ke dilo tse e leng gore wa di uma ka mme go tla batla re tsamaya re tlhodumela gore gone mme di tlabe di diragala ka tsela ntseng jang.
Yes go ntse on hantse ke mo reditsana I wanted to gongwe ke ke batla gore specifically to the issue unemployment because it's a huge issue. Ga re bua ka tsone this 10 key priority areas tse le gore di bona ga gompieno di ntsheditse madi a kana ka 17 billion pula for these key priorities. Ne ke batla gore gongwe ke tsama ke mo retsa gape ke batla go utlwa gore a renka dikgantsa unemployment among the young people because this my dear answer are key priorities so go yang go banane ke madi a le gore ba batla gore ba nne le seabe gore ba tla di sa ka tsentseng jang o lebala khanya the research and development e le gore gongwe le ha se la Botswana le ka gona go dira dilo tsa yone ka research ICT development go dira di app ana ke tsore o buile ka gore the online services mana ka gompieno go se go dilo di ka tshwara bo 100 something over 400 are upcoming me ha di ba ka ICT o go dira di app ke sengwe se le gore gantsi se dirwa ke banana so I'm yet to hear how the youth respond to these key priorities le gore bona ba ipona ba le ha kae mo budget ya ga mesera me ya ena kwa gompieno
maybe ga no ga ba ka gore mo mosong wa ka moso lona le phata la tsa madi le bitse banana ba le hasela Botswana ke tse gore gongwe tla re pele ga re digala be re tlhalosetsa banana gore ba ka inakana yang le yone buisano yo bitse banana ba le hasela Botswana gore ba tle ba tsibogele se ena a se rotseng wa ntha e botlhokwa gore go ha re utlwa di tlhabololo tse leng gore le hasele le di peile pele mme gongwe ha ba itsana pe ba ka tla ba tlhotlha gore ga mme go rae le gore go tlhama mebereko jang ha gongwe go tlhama mebereko go le kae ha le go tlhama mebereko go le kae ka gore selo se se tona e santse le tlhaelo ya mmereko
ya thala me go sambele di kgwete me kana o ga go le gore mo budgeteng e hitileng putso ne e tlhalosa gore e batla go dira hasela Botswana a construction site o madirelo na gompieno ana ba ta ba go ditse madi at the development budget
41%
which is ba koketsego ya 8 billion pula. So that's a huge amount of money. Ke dumela gore ona madi ona a tla kgona go thama ditiro jaaka ne re utlwa gore madi a bontsi jwa madi a tla go lephateng la lands and water affairs go leka go bo maung bo kasane bo tedi mo lepolole go tokagatsa maemo a difofane ke tsa gore go teng ko fa go na le ditiro tse le gore di tla sologela banana ba lehatshe leno mosola ke dumela gore go ditiro go di tla bonala mo go yone kganyone e re buang ka one
go tsela ka gore 41% wa go gola ga karolo ya ditlhabololo o pagama ga go di ga 28 wa ngogona mo go ra gore mo
a se tsa a hedile a sa ba a mo tiriso a ditsa mona kwa gompiena ke tsa wa o ketsa o pagama mo modia so ke solehela gore mo ngwageng wa madi re ta bona the national transition plan le gona go tswa maduo a lebaneng on
all right ke be ke ntse ke gakolle moretsi go ga gore ha ke go gakola motho go ga gore bileng le teng gore gone mme mo nakong ye thulaganyo kana yone pego ya kgaogana madi a setšhaba e ne e gasiwa ka tlhamallo jalo mo dikgaolong tsa lehatshe leno di le 57 mo dikgotleng di le 57 e le ka thulaganyo e dirilweng ke ba lephata la tsa madi mme mo go la ka moso e tshwanetse gore bele gore lephata le la letsa banana jalo banana gore ba tle ba tsiboge gore banana ba lehatshe leno bone ba utlwa e le gore kgaogano ya madi a setšhaba e ba raya reng a e ba tshwaretse isa go e leng gore jaaka ha re bua e re isa to a high income economy prosperity for all untatile ha ke tsore go ha re ntse re kgabelela gape ka ko Francistown.
Yes, I think it's time now cross over to Betten Mando in Francistown gore bola gore ko Francistown ko dere bokgola bo bele ha tseleno bone ba amogetse pego ya madi a 2023 2024 tota 2025 ka tsela e ntseng jang. ka tlhamallo go tswa kwano go ya go bone a re santse re metse bo morare bo Bethani le ba bangwe ba ile gore ba kontle go re tshwara dintlha tse dingwe re ame dintlha tse dingwe tse ile gore tona ona a dumaka mo pegong go ngwese gore tona o buile ka like a new risk associated with the 2024-2025 budget ona tlhalosa gore se ka ra itebatsa gore le khotela mahatsa a humehileng la G7 le ntse statement tsa gore tema ne tsote di go Belgium mme a tlhalosa gore sono seo ga se ka sa lebelwa sente one se kana sa hela se dira ga maiteko a gore ha se botsone le boele ke ditema di rekiswe ka nako go se ka gana le tiego a ka na dira go gongwe budget ene e pitele gore thelwa ke madi jalo a bua ka di issues tsa the geopolitical tensions gore ha go ntse go na go mahatsa ntsa a kubusana ka dijabana ra bo Russia le bo Ukraine go ngo ga hera go ita gore budget ene e dilo mana ka gompieno ana ya imelo ga yana madi a lekaneng go tsamaisa ditiro tsa puso a bua ka di issues tsa expenditure risk a bua ka di issues tsa inflation risk gore whatever happens come hatsinga a sele one se amana ha tsela botsona ka tseleng go hela jalo
okay maybe le se botlhoka go ebile tona asa tshaba go se uma ka ke gore ga go motswana e tla re mapudi ga ipone se mo tlhogong ga le tseo tse leng gore di kwa ntle tse leng gore ke ba ba ka ile gore a ka kgoreletsa go diragatswa a ka kgaogano e ka tsela ile gore e ungwala botle a bua ka yanong tse di neng teng mo gae a bua ka tseleng teng mo gae gore gona go tlhoka bonatla kana botswerere ka ha re dirang ditiro ka teng go hella go dia go ediwa ga ditiro tsa ditlhabololo ga 41% a ya ko go infrastructure development ga go sa tlhokomelo bonatla le botswerere mo ditirong tse go ka nna ya nna poelo morago gape
segolo jang o itse gore issue ya service delivery sa maduo mo tiro e ntse le kgwetho mo lefatsheng la Botswana go bua gore maduo mo segolo jang mo bodireding jwa puso a le mo mo ikemetse ka nose go ntse go le bonya that's why nka re lephata la ga re mona le tsile ka the development management concept gore le ka gore le kgarametse gore ditiro di dira ka nako le ka tsele e beileng one
ke rata ga o bua ka the development manager contracts mogopolo o ka gore ke dingwe tsa tse e leng gore di tla tlhoma leitlho go netefatsa gore ga go nne le tshenyego kana tshenyo ka gore sengwe sa dilo tse e leng gore di re busitse ko morago kana di re dia go tlhabologa ka lebelo le ka bero tlhabolola ka lone ke dilo di tshwana bo tshenyo tsa setšhaba dilo di tshwana le tiriso ya madi a setšhaba botlhatswa e se ka tsela tse e leng gore gongwe di gagamaditse tiriso mme le dilo tse e leng gore a bua ka ditlhabololo tse e leng gore di tla diragala go leka gone go gagamatsa le go leka go phutha madi mono gae go na le ko re tsaya madi teng ra tsa ko thekiso ya ditemane ko makgethong a bosaku jalo mme le mo gae mo go na le ko e leng gore re tsaya madi teng a re go leka go phutha madia to maximize revenue collection
segolo jang ke le ka utlwile a bua gore go tla re ba leka go ithagana go dupa dibuka tsa puso gore segolo jang ba kgone go itse gore madi a go dusa ka tsela ntse mme sengwe se sa nka se bua gore ke gore ne ke lebile gore lephata le la thuto recurrent budget le hile 15 billion ngaho itile it was the realization le hile 15 billion le sala morago ke lephata la botsogo gompieno ana le sala morago ke lephata la defense and then local government o ta go morago gore kganye ya dibuka dikolo ko sekolo maintenance of schools I hope this time around these things will come to an end on it.
Right, absolutely. Go mo maphateng a buile ka le gore ba tla simola ka one ga simola ka la thuto ka gore o rile go mo ga go tlhodimela go audita
yes
by September ba simola ka health be ra go transport ra go lenze ra go bo BDF le tse dingwe di agencies tsa puso e le gore bana go le ka go bona gore ga gona tshenyo kana go hokotsa tshenyego ya dithuto tsa setšhaba
I think it's very important for especially for Nepegiserame gore a netegatse gore ga go nna le tshenyo ga go nna le di holes somewhere there even the holes I think if make sure that at least they are tibia gore go se kana le marobelo gore madi a putso a tswa ka teng mme a sa diriswe ka tsela e siame so go na re itse re le khotla la PAC le gantsi le thodumela gore tsamaiso ya madi ya tsama ka tsenjana mo tirong tsa puso mme mara go mpela ka gone ntse re metse betane mando ga ke tse betane o sampa a siame gore go ka ra amogela gore re bole gore conference ba sa ka tsenjana mme pele a sampa ipakanya le ke gore re lebelle gore di go na le mona ba re the statutory expenditure gore madi a gore a thusa go gongwe magare the terminal benefits or the pension a tlhalosa lona a oketsegile to over 24 billion pula e le gore ke madi a tara bona gore a dirisa mo lehatsi la Botswana ke sa re mo ngwaga go itireng madi a teng ne around about 21 mme gompele ke ba le 24 billion
right go tla re matsatsing la ka moso ha re mo bekeng ya ha re lebile go simolla ga ngwaga wa semolao re tla re lebela tsenengwe tse e leng gore ke melawana e leng gore re lebile gore ye go tlhabolwa ye go tsenngwa mo tirisong mengwe e tsentse mo tirisong mo financial year tswa mo go yone e le gore go leka gore tota tshiamelo kana le maikelo a lehatsi la Botswana ga go gore ga go high income e nna motlhofu kana e tsama ka thello
e nna motlhofu re tsole re ga go le Motswana gore sampe re le ga di ka go ntsha parliament le gore BTV News is broadcasting to you live jaaka tona Mesrame ana sa tswa go rola pego tota ya kabokanyo ya madi a setšhaba 2024-2025 mme go le gantsi bona kwa gompena go utla go le modimo ga re menteng gona segolo o itse gore ga parlamenteng ke mapolitiki kgang ele ya political funding ke tsa gore ke ga e lengwe gore ke dumela gore ga ena go to overshadow anything that was said by Pegiserame this afternoon.
Ke dumela gore ba tlhatlha yone ba politiki ya bathulagantse a thulantse ditlhogo yana mme ntatile se se le gore gongwe re tla be re fosa go se lebala ke gone gore go rationalization go tokahatsa ka ha ile gore maphata puso a dira ditiro ka teng ene re mo budgeteng ya ngwaga ra bona ile gore maphata a tshwana bo lea le bo sida
yes.
e ne le maikelo a puso ya go bona gore a kopana go le gongwe hela mme ra bona ministry wa entrepreneurship gompieno tona o buile yalo ka go tshwaragana ga makalana a tshwana bo Bitri le bo innovation hub e le gone go leka gore go netefatsa gore tsa maranyane le tsa setegeniki tla tsamaya ka tsela e leng gore ke a tell
o ta itse gore kana e ne le B3 e be na le BIH gompieno BDIH Botswana Development and Innovation Hub. I was waiting to hear what Sina, I mean, Leah, and all these other state parasites for the so on. Because Hoka level, Bunzi Jama Patona, I did to second in their China, Medicine China, Mehoka to Copa in a social one. I think Hoka has a motor at the Itoro Copa Sokokai. But we have over 50 state enterprises, and some of them are not on the say to Dimdovama.
Okay. Rubella Hababusan Yarona, Motesa, Unzo Pandora, re tla kgabelela gape ko wena gore ba bega dikgamba ba Botswana television ba gone go ile gore lephata la tsa madi le dithabololo tsa itsholelo ba rulagantse thulaganyo ya gore Batswana ba tseka tlhamalalo molaetsa wa ga tona Serame e tla mme ha ra go bua ka go e be re bua gape le ba emba re simolotseng puisano e le bone e leng ba itsana pe ba tsa itsholelo go seka kana go utlwa bone gore ba e bona ile ntseng jang mona go ya gompieno ta ke tlhole Bathani Mando o ka kona.
nte ke go amogela ke tse sebaka se ke go dumedise ke bua jalo ke le mo toropo go la bobedi toropo ya Francistown ba ka e be boka ya ba re toropo ya Setizothi sa kanaka mme le ke go tlhalosetsa gore mona kwa gompeke gore ha khotleng ya motse wa Donga jalo ile yona kgaolo ya bothopi ya Francistown East ke yone le re motse la gompeke re kgethile setšhaba se ne se tsile ha ba tsile go leba kgotsa go bona ka mabedi jaaka kgaoganyo ya madi a setšhaba mme Peggy Serame ana e bega jalo ke dumela gore bontsi jwa batho ba le gore ba tsile gone ha e re la hetsa ba pa diata go no go supetsa le gore motho ka re ba dirile a budget e ba itlhaloseng jalo ba re it's an expanded budget e le gore e tle go supportela economic growth jalo mente le go senya sebaka jalo ke go tsamaya ke bua jalo le ratoropo ya Francistown jalo ile ne godisang ra disego jalo a tla go tlhalosetsa gore ene kgotsa o tsebogela jang the budget speech ya tsela gompeko e re bone jalo motho ka re motho wa mme Maserame jalo a bega kgotsa a rola a pego ya kgaoganyo ya madi a setšhaba re isego thank you very much go bo kgonne go ta go bitsa le rona mo tsela gompeko your reaction to this budget.
Sengwe sa dilo tse ke lebogetseng thata mo puong ya ga tona ke gore ile a simolola a bua ka gore go botlhokwa gore ba ye go tsenya leitlho mo mading a setšhaba ka ntse a dirisiwa ka teng the audit ke nngwe dilo tse e le gore di nnametsa pelo because gangwe le gape o itlhela re supiwa ka monana re le puso gore ka re madi ga a dirisiwe sentle ano ke nngwe dilo tse ke di lebogetseng thata gore golo mo ke nngwe dilo tse tla baakanya dilo le dintsi kana re bua ka madi a kana-kana go botlhokwa gore kgone go a accountela sentle mme ebile sengwe sa dilo tse ke di ratileng gape ga ntse a tsweletse ke yone the share ya e netseng the local government ebile kana e lebagane le rona le di-councele mme ebile gape ke itumeletse kgang ena e bua e lebagane le yone le local economic development e leng gore rona re le di-councele go mo nako ya gompieko re tshwengwa ke letlhoko la ditiro le le leng ko gontsi mme ano ka gore re na le ga ntse re bua ka teng re dira ka teng re ka di-issues tsa local economic development ke dumelwa ke nngwe dilo tse di re nametsang pelo ka gore re tla kgona gore re bone gore ra go dirang ka bagodi ba rona ba botlana letlhoko la ditiro di le ntsi mme se ke nngwe dilo tse e leng gore e tla ra di tsenya matho e be re bona gore rona go ka re e berekela ka tseleng tseyang gore re go hepela Batswana ba e le gore mo nako ya gompieko go supagala gore ba na le kgatlhego e tseng kana ka sepe mo dikganyeng tsa go itshetsa ka go itirela ditiro mme ebile gape re go lebelela le rona hela local authorities re ba tla ka tseleng tse re ba thusa ka tseleng tseng gore ba kgone gore ba e kopeng nngwe ya dikgang tse ne di buega thata ke tsa infrastructure raetso kana the road networks mo ditoropong tsa rona ke nngwe ya dilo tse le di ka rotloetsa bogwebelo yaanong ha go bua ka the infrastructure hela le yone ka go a ditsela ke nngwe ya dilo tse di ratang thata re di lebogela thata ebile re dumela gore di tla re thusa gore ga re ntse re ngoka batho re ba re tla mo toropo ya Francistown le tse go gwebela kona e be re le mo seemo sa gore indeed ke se e leng gore dikgwebo di ka kgona gore di tsamaye ka bomotlhogo go sena makgwere ape a leng teng issue tsa bo land service rights ke dumela le rona e tshwantse e re ame kana re le toropo kgolo. When we talk about servicing toropo ya rona Francistown ke ngwa tse leng gore re itse go di ka re solagela molemo mo toropo ya rona Francistown ebile go ka kgona gore go tlhogogatse itsholelwa toropo ya rona Francistown kana di tse re di buang tsena re bua ka bana ba tswana ba tlang ba kgona gore ba tsenyeletso go mo ditirong tse di harologane tse tla bo le teng regarding this issues se ke sa tswang go bua ka tsone mme hela bo molemo jo di kgang ke gore the policies se go ntse go bua ka tsone bontsi jwa tsone ke tse di rotloetsang bogobelo tse di rotloetsang dikgwebo ka go harologana.
ga ke bua thata o buile thata ka yone infrastructure development jalo mo Francistown motho ka re le tele re ya the gateway to the north re bona jalo ditsela tse di tshwanang Francistown Nata go nna le tsela e tswang ko Shashemoke Mathangwane Borole e wele ko A3 I think ke dingwe tsa dikgantse le ke dumela da go tsamaya le nametsa pele ka gore there's too much trafficking e tsena mo Francistown e heta ka Francistown.
Yeah, when we say we are the gateway to the north, there isn't any other route where connect the southern part le Africa kwana except rona le motoropo wa Francistown. So go botlhokwa go ditsela tsa rona e ne le tse le gore di mo selebeng se leng gore di ka rotloetsa gore go se ka na lope ka na le bothata jwa gore mme ke ya go ralla toropo wa Francistown ka tseleng ya the A3 road e buang ka yona raitso kana go mpie ko ngwe ya dio tse re di lebileng ka litho le hibidu ke gore there is a road that you once proposed e connect Gerald le Khapamadi e ritse gore gompieko when you talk about development mo toropo ya Francistown di ka go letsele di ka go harologana a volume entsi e nna ka go Gerald e nna ka go bo Shashemoke so we are encountering bothata jwa traffic ya batho ba ileng gore they are commuting ba tla mo toropo le ha ba tswa mo no yano ke ngwa di tse re solelang gore when you do this A3 road because Gerald Khapamadi link ya go ela mo yone the A3 road e tla nna ngwa di tse di tla lebelelwa. We've got our phase 4 industrial e leng gore le yone it is a package e leng gore soletse gore le yone e ka diragadiwa kana ke ngwe ya the industrial area e heta mebereko mo toropo ya Francistown e leng gore lebella itsholola toropo ya Francistown we are talking about that industrial area me mona go ya gompieko it's not serviced ya no ne re batla gore e nne ngwa di tse le gore puso e lebella ka ditho le rileng under this infrastructure development gore e gore thusa gore go hale re kgone gore re go be mo selebego se se siameng.
Ke dumela go gontse mo re ka go buang ra di se gona go ke ne tsamele hela just your reaction e nngwe ke dumela gore e ta tsamaya re ta e bua go tsena ka October 2024 political party funding a major milestone kgotsa ke it's a history in the making mo lehatsheng la Botswana.
It is indeed history in the making. Kana le rona la bona re le mo pusong ya letsatsi yana re ne re tlhaloganya seemo se leng go diparty di la ka sone gore le bone ba thusiwa gore ba kgone gore ba ye go gongwe yaanong we believe gore budget ka ha e builweng ka teng gore diparty ka go harologana di tla thusiwa ke sengwe se se tla tlhogoatsang gore ba diparty ka go harologana di kgone go ithekisa di kgone go bua le batswana ba sena makgwera e leng gore ga ngwe itlela bangwe ba re ga re kgone ka gore ga re na mo re na le gone so political funding ke ngwa di tse re di emetse bile re di rotloetsa gore di nteng mo lehatshe la rona la Botswana.
Ke go leboga retso le ka mosohelalo ene le ene re godisang ra disego ile ene the mayor of the second city of Francistown jalo ile ena a tsharolla budget ka haebone ka teng jalo mente le go senya sebaka nta ke boela go golona le tsole ditse jalo motho ka dipuisano tse le gore le ditshwere ka go le baitsiana phe ba harologaneng ba go nela batswana gore ga go bua ka kgaoganyo ya madi ya setšhaba e ra eng e ba makatselentseng ja go tswa mo Francistown ke bidiela go te Bethany Mando.
wala khatsela ke Bethany Mando ka Francistown a re le go disa ka go tsamaileng ka teng go bogela kana go bogela mo ile gore go nna gantse ke le phatala tsa madi gape go ya kgaogana ya madi ya setšhaba ka Francistown ana buisana ya le ratropo wa Francistown re disego go botswang mme ha re bona ka kwala ka go di ka gontsha parlamente ke na ba isana pe ba re semotseng thulaganyo e mmogo le bone e leng Neo Mahube e leng director wa investment facilitation ka Special Economic Zones Authority ke na gape le Dr. Malebo Bakwena e leng gore ene ke mitsana pe wa itsholela tsa itsholelo economics tla ke ba ke la amogela gape go ha re bua ka gore budget e le budget e nonneng ke batla gore go re simola ka go tshwaela ka gore ha re tsena mo transitional national development plan re bia budget ya ngogola re ne rena le maitlamo kana mahelo a leng gore ke a kgatlhego ya tsamaiso ya itsholelo a le marataro gompe go re lebile a le 10 a re bua ka go hetoga ga one kana gore gone gore go rai ke tla ke fe Dr. Bakwena
rokeditse ka le mararo and ha ke libile ene le go oketsa ga gore re atolose our priorities.
Right.
And these ones are more targeted in the sense that, for instance, now emphasis is on the agricultural sector. We want to make it more appealing, and so we are spending more money on it. We have reforms in terms of legislative reforms to ensure that we spend the money efficiently.
Right.
There is no underspending, there is no overspending. Tax reforms to take into account the fact that the diamonds are not doing very well in the global market. Therefore, we have to then reinforce our domestic revenue. So because of that, these reforms on the VAT to make it more efficient. There are other reforms that were outlined in regards to the BURS in that regard.
Okay.
We also see more emphasis on the climate change. It also boils down to the issue of agricultural sector. In the sense that with the climate shocks, we haven't been doing as well as we would like. But then when we take heed and keep an eye on those climate change issues, we are able to be more prepared in terms of that sector. The other issue that we talked about, which is also in line with what was discussed last year, is in terms of infrastructural improvements. We are spending more in terms of the new roads, the sanitation, the water. So it's all encompassing, whether you are an ordinary Motswana ko gae ko for you, in the sense that we'll be helping the agricultural sector, which is the rural livelihoods. We are talking
infrastructure. She mentioned infrastructure, sustainable livelihoods, and what efforts are going to go towards financing these areas of interest. I want to talk about to your ordinary citizen. You're a layperson like myself. When the Honorable Minister was talking about total revenues and grants and so on, do we have money? Does our economy have money? Yes.
We don't have money, but certain things have to be done. I would say to you, the Minister was playing a juggling act.
Right.
And but certain things have to be done.
Absolutely.
In the sense that we need the basics, we need the water, the electricity. That's why Motoko Khai, Haramu Kapela Kotuk, Rawana Motoko Khai, Rahutusaka, Horozing Okelamatas, Rahutusaka Horonal Internet, maybe the Resaime Ho, Internet, the Rozenga School Horokono Dirisa. There's no point in having internet when people can't use it.
Okay.
So there is that issue in terms of the infrastructure.
Right.
And the infrastructure also assists. Motonang ha go dirwa tsela ka ha thokoka. O khona go apa magwinyanyana sorobenyana bana ba le bajele sengwenyana.
Absolutely.
And it also stimulates the economy.
And also this speaks to the strategic positioning that we are as a land-linked country. I mean, with the investment on infrastructure, then that also makes that comparative advantage even smoother. I want to speak to the interesting new reforms when you're talking about the electrification efforts that are going to be embarked on. Let's talk about all the other newly introduced reforms. Speak to that. Is this now a more people-centric budget?
Yes. What I picked up from the budget is this is a game-changing program-based with high-value strategic investment opportunities. It's a remote. A public-driven budget. Infrastructure everybody should be, it's an inclusive budget. It's a budget, it is coming up with a lot of reforms. Rutle ka bo chama, rutle ka tsa bo intellectual property, rutle there's a lot that is going to be put into agriculture, and right or agriculture is a poverty alleviator. Gongwe le gongwe le nteng ka gore mongwe le mongwe o tla ba kgona gore a tsene mo go yone. Agriculture is everywhere. We rutle ka tourism, the value chain ya teng. Kana the value chain is not only provision ya maroko hela, it also allows for supply of inputs into this value chain. Mo go rang gore mongwe le mongwe o ka nna ha batsi. Ha go di mahamo re bone ka infrastructure e ntsi ya go diragalang, connectivity locally, domestically, e leng gore e thusa gore go nne le tsamao, movement of goods. Mme bile gape ba bua ka connectivity outside to ensure trade facilitation. But what is interesting also is the reforms. They are a risk, but they are coming up with solutions. That fiscal strategy improvement of governance. Go sekasekiwa go bo go diriwa go bona gore mongwe le mongwe accountable kana go mo ke makgetho a rona ke madi a ileng gore a dira from Bosaku plus madi a mangwe a ileng gore ke different reserves. So Motswana ko nte o batla go bona gore tota mme makgetho a rona a dirisiwa yang. So accountability and that improvement of governance is what is going to what is interesting. O buile ka tax reforms gore there is going to be consolidation ya di tax gore di tax di ska tsana dintsi di enne poto e lengwe hela kana dipoto tse di seng dintsi tse eleng gore tax ya teng e tabele consolidate ba bua ka sustained revenue and maximization ya yona go nna le kabakanyo ya gore madi a go diriwa jang madi a eleng gore a tla ba diriswa for di projects a go tla jang aba se leng gore se go phutha makgetho a re alo a re digitization a re go diriswa maranyane gore o le motho go gae o tla bo itsora ha ke reka metsi kana borotho ga gona madi a mangwe a eleng gore a go tsana mo dikhoneng a re le bone ba eleng gore ke ba rekisi ba dilo tseo ba tabo ba le accountable gore ba isa makgetho a ke re ga ke reka borotho ke ntsha 14% tax mme ha gongwe ga ke tsore a le kgatholo la tsa manako a re le tabo le goroga ka gore go a go digitiziwa a ba bua ka trade facilitation mo a reng go tla bo go le motlhofo go dira kgwebo gareng ga mahatsi o buile ka mamuno one stop border post ye leng gore ya go tshwana le ya ka Zungula a bua ka Pioneer a itse Pioneer ha e re 12 o'clock kana 10 o'clock ya tswalwa a bua ka tlokwen ye reng ha e re 12 o'clock e be tswala ya nong a re o tla bo sa simolle o simolla ka go Botswana a bo ya ka go South Africa e ta be le border post e lengwe hela gona le harmonization ya dipampiri
batla go letsana ga no gone go ka thulaganyo e tona a ibuang le maitekwane gore a tla dira go le ka go maximize revenue collection ya ka mahoko a go a dirisa gone mme ha Motswana ha tla go retsa budget o tla bantsha re ke ha ka ha ile gore go ke ditiro go ga ra gore retsa mananeo a le maiteko a le thulaganyo tsotlhe tse le gore tona wa diama tse leng gore madi a setšhaba ta ba ya go di diragetseng ha re tla go bua gore gone mme ha re tlhotlha mme re bona a mme budget e ka thusa go oketsa go tlhama ditiro ka mokgwa ofe
ka gore it's targeted to the informal sector and the informal sector that's the sector along it's generating most of the jobs but gantsi ga re ele thokoho so ha gona le gore ha ona le semausunyana o ka thuswa ja then we don't need those people to be in the informal sector for be re ntse re lwala ditiro yalo le gore e nngwe gape it's in the agricultural sector ya gore jaanong we are able to supply the schools with our agricultural produce. How now you are able to supply a school. So nahaki libile in terms of an ordinary Motswana, an ordinary Motswana remoakanyi ditse gore nya mme re ta dira mole mo in terms of the agricultural sector.
go tswa go gongwe ha re tswa go ba informal re gatela ha go dimonyana ha ba madirelo a go ngwa le magolwane go heta ho kganye sa bolong go nna ntse bua ke ba itekang ke gore Public Private Partnership Act kana e hakae go tlohatsa gona gore re ka tsoga re tshwara ga nna tiro ya go ala ha Botswana kana ya go ruta Botswana le puso ha re ka tsena ho
public ba ibitsa triple P gantsi and o buile ka infrastructure e ntsi ngwa tsone hela e ke kae highlight ke gore gompieno go dirwa seporo sa Trans-Kalahari gore mentare seporo seo ga ke go se dira ke le nosi ka gore ga ke na madi a lekanetseng mme ke batla gore the private sector it's an advantage of this is where the triple P comes in mo teng ga infrastructure ene ke dumela gore are wa go tsenya di market across go wa tsenya di market a re tsela A1 yote e tabena le market o bona go re tlhalantse re go di bete go a rekisiwa ha le go a rekisiwa ke teng ha e leng gore these are opportunities tsa infrastructure development tse e leng gore private sector e kgona go ka partnera le governmente go tlisa tsone ditlhabologo tse dintseng jang
nako ya re pitlagane me ne kwa tlapela ga re kgaogana me Mahube re tsena gore gona ha e leng gore e bile o dira teng Special Economic Zones Authority go buile ka go tlhabolola kana servicing of land in the Special Economic Zones.
Yes. Kana di special economic zones ke mahelo a hapegileng a eleng gore mahatshe a le mantsi a diriseditse go godisa di itsholelo ya tsone ka go godisa domestic investors gore ba kgone gore ba dire dithoto tse ka dipalo tse di go godimo ba kgona go exporta
gore heskae topola ile ngwehela gore heskae ha o direla ha company tswa go ntakana ele ya mogae nte ke tse company gongwe e dira e le gore ntse e dira mabele bubjwa mabele mme le gore e bona gore go na le there's a need, the market needs a lot of milled products kana di cereals nte ke tsa hela di cereals cereal based ke tsa Pandamatenga as an SEZ gona njana re na le import bill ye leng gore import bill ya teng it's the second cereal import bill is the second topmost import bill ye no, yeah, the cereals. Oh, yeah, the cereals.
Yes. It's the second biggest after beverages.
Oh.
Mo go rang gore re isa di kgwebo ko ntle. Mme re na le an SEZ e tswana le Pandamatenga. Ye re batla go itemela. E re ha re tswa fo re ska ra isa mabela a rona ko ntle kana mmidi ko ntle mme ebile re batla go diversify se re se producing Pandamatenga gona go dirwa cotton go kgona go dirwa wheat yaano rare teng fo a go processiwe re bone bo di conflicts tse di tswa mo Botswana go processiwe re bone flour e tswa mo Botswana so yaano special economic zone yone ya rona ke yone e leng gore ya re a ba go ba bantseng ba le teng ba kgona go golela go go processeng tsone dilo tsena rona ko special economic zone rare a di ska tsa ko nte di sa tlhotlhiwa di sa okediwa value yaano ha di ntse yana go ra gore di a go create ditiro ebile ra go tla ka domestic investment ya gola ra go godisa le yone foreign investment over and above that these are opportunities tse leng gore di a kgona go exportiwa agar 2036 ya ra high income ebile ra export how do you export ka smaller so you export ka ba batona mme who is going to produce the big ke gore ano e be le gore ga se Pandamatenga hele gore ta be producer ha le gore go batiwa let's say cooking oil all the clusters tse di mo Botswana mongwe le mongwe yo mo agriculture ka temo le tlotlo o ta ba khona go producer sunflower a ba isa ko Pandamatenga this big investors e ba
go hehosa jaanong re le biena ko me a utlala ke go lebogile me Mahube re le bogala le ka hantsong o tla o re thusa go tlhaloganya kgaoganya madi a setšhaba ka teng
thank you
ha ke leboga jalo me Mahube be le gore o direla ka Special Economic Zones Authority ka go bo e le nngwe ya dilo tse e leng gore tota tona Serame o di nnang ko tsa bua ka tsone serviced land mo di-special economic zones tsa rona mme mo go dingwe tsa tse e leng gore ke kgatlhego ya lehatshe leno kana ke re di-interest kana di-priority tsa itsholo ya lehatshe leno re ko godimo-dimo ga tsone ke infrastructure and spatial in development go boyalo ka dithoto di tshwana bo ditsela dithoto tse dikgolo tse di ntseng jalo mme gape ga re bua ka spatial re bua ka tiriso ya lehatshe gore go mo Botswana mo go na le thulaganyo lenaneo la ditogamano tsa go logela maano go dirisa lehatshe a special national spatial plan e le gore e gakolola jalo gore lehatshe ha bokete le ka dirisetswa se ha bokete le ka dirisetsa se e leng gore ke tsone di-special economic zones ya ka ga re ntse re di tlhaloganya e le nngwe ya di-priority tsa setšhaba tse di lesome tse e leng gore tse di robang bongwe tse e leng gore re sa tswa go utlwa tona wa tsa madi a duma ka gompieno gongwe ga ke tsamaya ke go di gakolola motho wetso la ntlha ka ke buile gore ke infrastructure and spatial development re lebile gape le sustainability of our livelihoods ke tla di bua ka puo ya seeng ke tsa mahoko a ga tona re bua yalo ka agriculture development mme a tlhalosa le gore ga go dima ga tema le tlotlo re sa tswang go bona e tlhongwa re tla boa re tlhoma gape mo ngwageng oneo thuo le tlotlo o makile gape le research dipatlisiso gore ha re bua ka research informed development be le gore ha re bua ka ditlhabololo re bua ile tse e leng gore di setse morago se e leng boammaruri jo re boleletsweng ke dipatlisiso mme tse dingwe di akaretsa yalo green transition education and tourism development ha re tswala motho wa gaetso ke boa ke bitsa gape moeng o mongwe gape go tswa gone ebile ko lephateng le gore le bereka le tona jaana go tlhotlha le go aga togamano e leng gore ke kgaogano ya madi a setšhaba a re ka gore yalo ke go amogela maitso ke go amogela ha re hetsa go amogela kgaogano ya madi a setšhaba ke be kere re tla re ntse re umaka gore go ha kana ke thulagano e leng gore ga e simololle gompieno tota ya ka ha e tla re parlamente be buisana kgaogano e kana this proposal e tla re ha a simolola go dirisiwa madi a teng e be le gore thulaganyo e simolola sešwa re bua gompieno ka a people centered budget gongwe ha re simolola re boela ga maragonyana gore go bankanyetsa ye motho ene o tsene ga kae one morero one o e leng gore ra re ke people centered motho o nne le seabe se le kae mo go ageng madi a re sa tswang go utlwa kgaogangwana
process ya simula hela ka May emma ka May internally mo finance re simula go dira what we call forecasts e be re ka bo June ke gona le gore re kopana le maphata di stakeholders e be re ka bo August be re kopana le di ministry mme gompieno go na le phata le ntšha le go teng National Planning Commission National Planning Commission ke lone le go le gore gompieno ke lone le prioritizer ke bona ba tlang ka di-projects mme go dira yana ba dira through di-committee tse go bidwang thematic working groups di-thematic working groups tse ga se babereki ba goromente hela di kopantse go na le ba re ba bitsang development partners ba tshwana le bo UN re na le private sector e tshwanetse go representwa mo thematic working group nye re na le ba di NGO le bona ba tshwanetse gore la ha ba sa participate fully mme bone ke di-member tsa di-thematic working group na le thematic working group tse 4 go na le go teng sustainable environment ba thata ba dirang ka environment ka bo climate change so gantsi mo o tla ithala go development partners tse dintsi ba tshwana le bo UN ba tshwana le ba bangwe ba ba emetseng bana ba ba contributang towards that go na le go teng o tsene bidwa go te HSD human and social development ke bona ba gantsi ba tanka social programs sustainable livelihoods bona ho gantsi ke bona ba di-program tsa bo ipelegeng di-program tsa bo sa thola bidwa poverty alleviation gompieno to wealth creation di-program tsa bo HIV/AIDS di-program tsa tsona tsa bo destitute tsa bo old age pension tsa bo tsone tse o emma le gone go di representative not only ka ke bua ba goromente ba teng gone mo go nna la ya sustainable and economic development
right
na le di area rents di committee tse 4 ona le committee e leng gore e dila le infrastructure development infrastructure development go na le ba metsi go na le ba ditsela go na le ba ICT me ICT le yone go na le sub committee ya teng
right
go na di kana tla ke go na le ICT go na le research
okay
ya research le yone go na le ba leng gore ba mo teng mme hala ke yone consultation e diriwa mme le gona e ka tswa ke tlogetse gore go na le mo process yone go na le ha re yang go
dipitso emma
gompieno ne di le mmalanyana nna go na le pitso le a banana all that contributions tse tswa mo go bone di tsawa on board ha re setse re ta go dira yone process ya go ta go tsena gone mme a kana ke bua ha re sena go kopana le di ministry ka bo technical level director level ka bo June July on a le committee e bidiwang go te estimates committee it's a bigger committee e chairwa ke permanent secretary wa finance ena le permanent secretary ke gone go eleng gore whatever recommendation ene re tla ka yone ba e bua gone ho ke go ra e banela bone bo ba e tlhatswa that committee through minister of finance ba ta bo ba isa yone mogopolo go cabineteng ka bo November December gompieno no wa hitsere le baka up to body 22 tsa re tse ka 22 tsa December ha re tswa go 22 tsa December di dira tsone di pampiri tse leng gore dibuka ya madi e le gore setse e tile mo parlamenteng e be re dira le yone minister a batla go bala budget speech
okay alright ya ra tlhaloganya ke thulaganyo ile gore go tla ga yone yana ya lebega gore e akaretsa ba anelwa ba anelwa ka go harboga
stakeholders tse
dintsi tla ke bele bo gona Dr. Bakena ka gore mo gone wa ga ono ne ra bona netona wa madi kana ha re etona wa tsa madi ra akaretsa le badiri ka ene ne ra bona a hiwa tlotla jalo ya finance minister of the year Africa gore mo thulaganyong ya go tsamaisa madi a setšhaba ha re tswa mo manokong ya COVID-19 le go leka go gola re le itsholelo ba mo akgola re utlwa thulaganyo ya go tiriso ya madi a setšhaba ya ka me lepekwana a itlhalosa wena ha o le moitsanape wa tsa itsholelo o ile ba o reng go a thulaganyo e ke yone ka tsong gongwe e re hile matshwao ao kana le tse dingwe tse ka tsang o bona le gore ke tsone tse di dirisitseng ko
ba tsona ga re tshwane le ngwao ya rona ga e tshwanela ba bangwe we have the Khotla system and tota it's a modernized version ya the Khotla system
morero
in e morero ra rera ya ka re rera ha se gongwe le gongwe go go reriwa ebile ya no ya ka madi a soyana ga o batla go utlwa gore ba bangwe ba reng o batla gore o dire di-number hela o di banela so that's something that's unique with us but of course going back to issue a kgantele gore though re ka tswa re na le matlhoko a le 10 ga se mo ga re ke ra dira dilo tsotlhe tse 10 ra go hella gongwe ga go 8 re lebile sone se kgwama gore mme these are important but what are the priorities jaanong ha re togela tse dingwe tse 5 tse kontetse mongwe go gongwe ga itumela gore nya kana mme nna ne ke batla gore sele le sele so the ministry is then responsible for saying okay we have these important issues what do we want to prioritize in this case
okay
so tsamaiso ya rona ke one
e le gore re hile matshwao a go nna jana a re le mo go ankela hats ka bophara a re boela go gena me malepekwane gongwe o sa re batla go utlwa makalana otlhe a lephata la gago gongwe re batla go utlwa hela ka gore ha ne re bua gompieno tota tona tlhalosa bo revenues and grants a tsena ka go bua ka bo lendings and jang ditsamaiso tsa madi tse ne gore di a iragala mo lehatsheng ke be ke botsa baeng ba me le me ba kwena ha le kgantele gore dipalo tsa di buantse a dira gore lehatshe la rona le na le madi le tlhala a re tshwanetse re tlhobaele kana re itumele re re lehatshe la rona le itshetletse le eme sentle
ga se gore go da gore lehatshe le na le madi mme le na le di-opportunity tsa go batla madi o lebela gore re reitiwa yang kana rating ya lehatshe e dira gore ga o setse o adima madi ko mahatsheng a selekana gongwe le gongwe ko o tabo o adima teng o wa adima ka interest ga teng favorable condition ga go tshwane le mahatshe a leng gore ga ba na madi mme ga ba rane itsholelo a bone sente o ba reitiwa like junk ga go reitiwa go tswa gore o reitiwa wa go adima madi selekano so yang go charge-wa madi a teng ka sone in terms of interest rates, in terms of the period yo go duela ka yone go lebelwa gore a mme wana you are credit worth go tshwanela le motswana ya bankeng a sa sekgwama sa gago if that's the reclamation se patches sa gago a sa se tshware sente ga a tshwane le mongwe leng gore ene o tlhokomela madi a gago se wa duela ka nako o kgona gore ha le gore o na le bothata buele ba o tshwanetse a lo ha ya bankeng o kgona go tsaya hela o hiwa madi a la sente bo tshela sente ka gore gana that bad record o tswana gana bad o duela ka nako o duela ka nako ga kolote ope ya sa o palelwang ke go mo duela that's a plus mo Botswana
go na le maano ka maano ga sete maano a mangwe a le gore lehatshe la rona kana itshola la rona e tsene mo gone gongwe strategic investments ya ka gongwe di-acquisitions tse re di bonang di diragetse mo go be HB Antwerp mo go e a melemo ke tla le ba inela yone America emma ke batla go tshwara ka maano a go nna jana ga ke re bua yana ka go nna le madi go ka dira madi go ka nna le go ka tshepega mo go tsa ka madi ditshwetso tse re di tsereng tsa go strategic investment o tshwana mo go tsona o reng
about us always being wary of the 40% our debt to GDP ratio being 40%.
Right.
Although we still have an opportunity to borrow.
Right.
We are always wary of that. We are always keeping it at the back of our minds, and we don't want to go beyond the
to push it
threshold.
to its limit. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
The other.
ke kopelo me malepakano o me thusa o motlatsa ka gongwe di strategic investment the decisions that we have entered into that the minister alluded to in the budget allocation proposal
me gone di right gore ga o ntse o investor that's how le wana o ka kgona go bona madi ba bona rather than o tsa sekolo tlohela mme go sena investment even o bona development budget ke public investment le yone ka bo yone ke ra go na le strategic but re itse gore development budget is public investment ha re investor mo dikolong is an investment ditsela tsa ke investment but go na le tse re di biditseng strategic tse re itse gore the return in investment that ka le bogadi bo gaufi rather than the socialists.
Okay. Mo go tshwana ga motswana ka re ke na le peeletso e me gape ke batla cash business motswana e dira e bua ka motlhofana a re cash business me ha re sama ra go digela ke batla re tshwaela ka tseleng gore di umakilwe di amana le mahama wa thuto kana thutego ya motswana ka gore ke re lemoga mo budgeteng ya ka tse dingwe lone le phata la thuto le hilwe serwe se segolwanenyana mme re mo ditlhokong tse di ga go dingwana e bile tsa thuto le thutego gompieno ga re tsamaya ra digital transformation go tla tshwana ke gore ntle le go rutega ABC re be re rutega le matsipa a go dirisa maranyane a le matlhale a go tshela le maranyane a re tshwaele ka budget ya education
education ona a bua ka gore tertiary financing in terms of taking care of university students, for instance.
Right.
So the bulk of it goes there. She also talked about, in terms of education, she also talked about
outcome-based.
The initiatives under the Ministry of Education.
Outcome-based education. Because even all along European Union.
Right.
The first ETSSP. Almost speech minister, we have to review ETSSP. I think education sector strategic plan. Let me just say. Education, but maybe also focusing go party I think how ka bona madiamants ya recurrent now it's an development once ba the facilities tsa dikolo ta bona o ka re di ole especially tsa di kwa madi a le mantsi a tle go ta go tlhabolla those facilities hona le madi a ona ICT.
Right.
It's also a sizable amount. Ke ona le gore a reka tsone di tablets le go le ka go tla ka ma-teacher ba trainiwa le curriculum
na yuma yona ka gore go le gantsi re na le gore ha re lela kana bana ba lela ka letlhoko la ditiro go bo go le motshega gore gongwe thutego ya bone ga e nyalane le se se hirwang gongwe kana ga se gore ga gona ditiro gore ga gona tse di tshwanetseng ditiro ka gore ke gona hano ha education and skills training it's a thing.
Also, I guess talking about the output-based education.
Right.
The Botswana Qualification Authority has now said to all the higher education institutions, you have to get your programs or curriculum such that it's output-based.
Right.
By 2024, I think, they're phasing out that those programs of ours, we are just we are judging on the number of years that yes. So that's one of the initiatives that we have. She also talked about buying more books, more books for
the institutions. Okay.
So there would be a balance between the books and I guess for those students who are not able to access
the ICT,
tablets, ICT, they're not. But I guess that the idea is to move to the ICT so that all the students have those tablets rather than regressing and using those books.
One of the reform in multiple pathways. How those were two schools in a whole. I don't want to say pilot, but to implement multiple pathways.
Right.
Because only the businesses are tourism, only hotel kind of multiple pathways. How can I come in? One agriculture, small agriculture.
Starting with the student profiling program.
I guess kind of the reason why some of these technical courses are not or are frowned upon is because you go through the schooling system. After Form 3, Form 5, you don't make it, and go to the brigade. So it makes you feel, I'm going to the brigade because get valid. Okay. But then if we have this multiple pathway, then students get to choose through the schooling system, and they don't feel that they're rejects. You know what, and I'm good at bricklaying. So
bottom line, I am good.
Yes,
I'm good
I don't want the books.
I want to ask you to close on a very important factor, 12 years to go to get to our intended national vision 2036, and also at that point to be a high-income economy. And we want to well, the IMF has advised that our economy should be growing at 6%. Steadily at 6%. We are short 2%, and I want to know what your optimism or your outlook or your encouragement from today's budget is about attaining this aspiration going forward.
The IMF did talk about, they gave us 3 takeaways.
Right.
One, we have to deal with the infrastructure.
Right.
That's what we've done. The digital transformation and innovation. Fingers crossed that once we've connected the internet and the ICT, we maintain it.
Right.
So, and also in terms of the reforms to make sure that we are more accountable.
Yes.
So as
are you encouraged that we will reach 2036 on target?
From the budget, we may be.
Okay.
Because she gave an example of the financing, the tertiary financing, that they've moved it from one place to the other, and there are some improvements.
Okay.
So it's encouraging, but we have to keep an eye on it and be efficient in terms of our expenditure,
Yes.
Efficiency in terms of
public spending,
not underspending or overspending.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to close it, Madepekwana. Are we on track? Because each budget is a step-by-step towards the ultimate vision.
Thank you. I think I'm encouraged, especially looking from the development budget side of it. Ghana, from the previous budget, remote 2022, the budget was 16 point. Original approved budget 16 point. Let me just say 16.
Right.
We moved to 21. Now we are almost at 30,
right.
Which means that at least we are focused, and a lot of the bulk of the budget goes to infrastructure.
Right.
And by developing our infrastructure, obviously that can lead to economic growth and also have a bearing on employment. How to focus on that area.
Okay. Let me thank you both for coming through. Thank you for your time, and we hope to catch up with you as deliberations around this budget continue in the next month or two.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right. I'm thanking here Dr. Madeboga Bakwena. I'm also thanking Mayor Kinetse Lepekwane from the Ministry of Finance, and we're just looking and receiving the presentation that was presented before Parliament by Honourable Minister of Finance, Peggy Serame, just this afternoon. A very robust budget, speaker after speaker has been pointing out here at our makeshift studio outside the Parliament building. Very interesting economic times indeed. And as we look to the next coming Parliament sitting, which is the final of the 12th Parliament, to deliberate on it, to dissect it further, we also will be engaging with members of the public, because the very interesting newly introduced reforms that are coming with this budget, and we're also sitting at a very broad-based transitional position as the economy generally also coming to the close of the Transitional National Development Plan. So coming from Parliament building this afternoon, following the presentation of National Budget Proposal 2024-2025 from the whole of the crew that was out here at work, and myself and Ontatile Boti would like to bid you a good afternoon. Sola Wikanyerona on the BTV News channel. Over to the Mass Media Complex.
go etsotla ke go lebogela go botsweletseng tsona le rona ra tswelela tona wa madi mme Pheki Serame a re puso e bona go tshwanela go tswelela Manoke Mahama wa thuto ka ona le seabe se segolo mo kabakanyong ya itsholelo a re tiriso ya maranyane ya tlhokega mo thutong a tswelela a tlhalosa fa lenaneo la thuto la Education and Strategic Plan le tshwanelwa ke go sekasekwa le go tokafatswa go itepatepanya le seemo sa thuto sa nako eno.
Government recognizes the transformational potential of investing in a knowledge-based economy where the creation and application of knowledge becomes central to economic growth. It has been proven elsewhere that a skilled and knowledgeable workforce drives innovation, increases productivity, and fosters competitiveness in the global market. In this connection, a combined budget of 28,600 billion pula, comprising a recurrent budget of 26,890 billion pula and a development budget of 1,710 billion pula is proposed for this priority area in the 2024-2025 financial year.